Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto can summon animatronics full movie. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. It was over, the battle for the village had ended, although the once mighty village had seen better days. Konoha resides deep within a thick, lovely forest, which surrounds the base of a large mountain known as Hokage Rock, which has the 5 faces of those who had taken the title of Hokage engraved on it. This mountain serves as the furthest edge, and back, of the city. A massive wooden and metal wall, with 4 green gates made from wood, surround the village. Those large green gates, large wooden and metal walls, have protected the village from the outside world, and have stood proud for many, many years. It was a massive village with wooden, brick, and metal buildings of all shapes and sizes, with varying shades of color. The mixture of paths also allowed people to walk about the village, and gaze in awe at the complexity, beauty, and strange romance of the environment, both natural and urban. Now, it was different from all those beautiful memories. There was hardly any of the village left. The battle against the Paths of Pain had a catastrophic effect on the village. Konoha was in ruins. Most of the aesthetically pleasing buildings and fauna inside the walls of the village was destroyed, with the odd surviving buildings being ruined or damaged. Those large green gates, large wooden and metal walls that have stood proud for years, were in tatters. Most of the walls were not spared in the assault, leaving the village open to the outside world. And in the exact center of the village, the reason as to why most of the buildings were destroyed, the reason as to why the once beautiful buildings looked as if they were pushed against the edges of the zone, was a massive crater that filled the core of Konoha to the brim. Despite all the odds, despite losing control to his tailed beast, despite losing many people he cared about, and despite all the odds, Naruto Uzumaki had won. He had defeated pain, and saved the village. Naruto had also lived up to his name as the unpredictable ninja, and talked to the leader of the Akatsuki, the man behind pain, a man known as Nagato Uzumaki. Upon finding him, the two had a large debate regarding ethics, peace, pain, and the future, before Naruto finally got through to Nagato, showing him that the path that he had traveled was the wrong path. To thank Naruto, and to help start his new life on his path, he revived everyone that died during his invasion, while Naruto healed him using Kyuubi's powers. Naruto let Nagato and Konan go, before returning back to Konoha, his home. However, even on his way back, he was troubled, but kept it well hidden when Kakashi Hitaki, one of his many teachers, found him, and helped him back to the ruined village. Upon returning, the populace of the entire village greeted him. They cheered for him, sung songs for him, and praised him. He was their hero now. He was no longer the monster they originally thought him to be. Reconstruction of the village was top priority now, and even though he was troubled, he helped the villagers in the first phase of reconstruction, as it would be a long process in the restoration of the ruins and battle scars. The walls were first on the list of things to rebuild, before everything else, and they were completed quickly, with the help of the various construction workers, nature users, and shadow clones to increase the pace of the work. New Konoha was being built inside the crater, with stairs and pathways leading along the rim of impact zone, reaching the original grounds of the village just outside the radius of the crater, which were being rebuilt. Despite the fact that the village was in such a state, the villagers were completely ecstatic, happy that everyone was okay, and the casualties were 0. However, there is always bad news. Other than the fact the village was a mess, and they had to rebuild nearly everything again. The Hokage of Konoha, Tsunade Senju, was in a coma from her fighting, and the summoning jutsu she used to make sure everyone survived Pain's attack, the one that left the crater in the village. She had made sure that the people of the village was protected by her slug summons, just before the almighty push struck the village. That, however, was her final act before succumbing to chakra exhaustion and falling into a coma. One that she hasn't woken up from. Right now, Naruto was walking along the old dirt paths of Konoha, the original village grounds on the crater edge. The sky was clear, the sun was blazing, but was low in the sky. Naruto Uzumaki is a tall, tan-skinned, handsome individual, who has dark blonde, messy, spiky hair, and sea blue eyes. He has strange characteristics on his face in the form of 3 whisker markings on each cheek. His outfit was strangely simple, as it was just made up of dark blue, borderline black pants, and a long sleeve shirt of the same color, both acting as a jumpsuit. The back of the shirt held the Uzumaki clan crest. He also wore black sandals. Over this, he wears a short-sleeved, knee-long, blood-red coat that is decorated with black flame patterns around the hem. The back of the coat also held the Uzumaki clan crest for the world to see. He had his forehead protector headband around his left arm, with its metal plate, and the Konoha symbol cut into the metal. He is also carrying a black backpack, and with the indentations in the bag, it may contain books, or sharp-cornered objects. Naruto was walking for some time, never stopping, and always thinking. While his clones were helping in the reconstruction of the village, he was trying to figure out what to do now. He was still thinking back to the battle against Pain, from him going berserk, and going into the four-tailed state, before he went even further, going into the six, and then the eight-tailed state when he was trapped by Pain's planetary devastation. It was when he was about to fully unleash the nine-tailed fox, that Minato Namikaze, also known as the fourth Hokage, but also known as his father, stepped in and prevented Naruto from pulling off the seal. Naruto was so happy to see his father, but also incredibly furious at him for sealing the tailed beast into him, his own son. Minato had explained what had happened around the time of Naruto's birth to cause such an act, and his reasoning behind sealing the Kyuubi into him. It helped Naruto understand why his father did what he did, and while he was still angry, it cleared it up, and to be honest, his father did the right thing. The newly reunited father and son sat and talked for ages, before his father noticed something on the base of Naruto's neck. A seal that Naruto had never noticed, and judging by Naruto's reaction, one he didn't know he had. To say Naruto was livid was an understatement. He had no idea a seal was on his neck, but the nature of the seal was also a cause for more rage. It was a memory-blocking seal, but it also had what appeared to be a memory-altering seal mixed in with it. And it looked like it had been reapplied a few times. Minato had repaired the 8-sign seal on Naruto's stomach, before removing the memory-blocking seal, memory-altering seal mix on the base of Naruto's neck. He wasn't expecting his son to be in pain from that, and he had held his son to help him calm down, and to ease him through this. Poor Minato wasn't expecting the flurry of swear words that roared from Naruto's mouth when the pain subsided, but Naruto still had tears running down his face. While the former Hokage had seen Naruto cry tears when he met him for the first time, the tears that Naruto was releasing was full of rage, sadness, and hatred. When he asked Naruto why he was crying in rage, and screaming profanities across the mindscape, the answer he had gotten was one that changed his view on Konoha, and on the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, forever. It had sickened the former Hokage to no end what most of the populace of Konoha had done to Naruto. It turned out that they were trying to groom Naruto to be their guard dog, well, guard fox in this case. Not all of the clans and people of the village were in on this, but the majority was. But to have over 9 of Naruto's friends disappear, seal away his memories of those friends, then to reapply the seal every so often to hide away more memories was just insulting and appalling. They didn't honor his dying wish, so to make up for what he did by sealing the Kyuubi into Naruto, Minato trained Naruto for as long as he could, before he was forced to return to the afterlife, where he would ruthlessly destroy Hiruzen for what the old fart did to his son. Naruto, upon returning to the village, had found the ruins of the Hokage residence and in secret, went through all the documents and scrolls, copying the many forbidden scrolls, including the Scroll of Seals. He also found the Black Books, in which all the information of the reigns of the Hokages were documented, both public and private. He originally wanted the books of the 3rd and 5th Hokages, regarding the whole Naruto Uzumaki weapon plan, the one that the 3rd had started, and the 5th was continuing. He also took note of the Hyuga affair, the Uchiha clan downfall, the Uzumaki clan demise, and a few others. He had originally left all the black books alone, apart from Hiruzen's and Tsunade's, but upon looking at chapter titles in the other Hokage's black books, he made copies of all them after finding some juicy bits of information. So he ended up copying everything from all the books, in case he would need the information later on. Naruto's walk and reverie was interrupted as he found another family photo album in the ruins. He created a shadow clone using a single hand symbol. The clone exploded into existence, before it picked the photo album up, and took it to the lost and found area, where many items were being dropped for families to look through if anything of theirs were found in the rubble. Naruto shook his head with a light, fake smile, before continuing on his walk along the edge of the crater. He was also trying to remember more about his locked past, more importantly, the friends that were apparently killed according to the books by the Third. The plan apparently had it so he would only grow up with who the Third wanted him to grow up with, so that those people, more like agents, could keep Naruto from harboring any form of resentment to the village, and instill loyalty into him through friends. The very thought of fake friends like that made Naruto scowl, and only fueled his animosity to the village he had wanted to become leader of. His musings were curtailed, when the sounds of footsteps made it to his ears. The person wasn't being stealthy, so it wasn't an assassin, but it was quiet enough to let Naruto know that the person was light on their feet, or experienced at keeping it quiet, and keeping to the shadows. Turning to his left towards a still ruined building next to a small forest, he saw who it was. The third Hokage had told Naruto never to trust this man who was meeting his gaze right now, but as it stands, Naruto didn't trust a damn thing that came from Hiruzen's mouth anymore, but because the person in question had caused the whole downfall of Nagato Uzumaki, Naruto wasn't going to trust him for that reason. Standing before Naruto was Danzo Shimura. He appears to be a frail, old man. This was also implied by him walking with a cane. But Naruto could tell that he was always guarded, and was always on alert, as his muscles twitched with each movement, and he was also keeping his eye out for any would-be assailant. He has black, shaggy hair, however his right eye and forehead was bandaged. He also has an X-shaped scar on his chin. He wears a white shirt, with a black robe over the top of it covering from his feet, to just over his right shoulder. The robe conceals his right arm which is also bandaged, and covered with 3 large golden braces. Naruto Uzumaki, came the experienced voice of Danzo, who was meeting Naruto's gaze. The older male knew where Naruto was the whole time. He knew the real Naruto was keeping his distance from most of the villagers, and only helped out if needed. While Naruto did help rebuild a fair deal of Konoha, most of that was due to his clones, and while the others may not have noticed this, Danzo was one of the few who did notice. To Danzo, Naruto was the guardian of the village, and the prison that holds the 9-tailed beast. He also knew how vital Naruto was to the future of Konoha, being the son of Minato Namikaze, and being the Jinchuriki of the strongest tailed beast. Danzo knew he could easily control the beast inside Naruto using his transplanted Senju and Uchiha cells, but he didn't want that. What he did want was Naruto to be the one who fought with the village, for the village. The Shimura clan member was a patriot at heart, and he would do anything to protect Konoha, and through any means necessary. He himself knew he was self-righteous, amoral, and had draconian methods, but he also has a sense of nobility and dignity. He would do anything to protect Konoha and bring peace to the shinobi world. You're Danzo Shimura, a member of the Council of Konoha, and rival to Hiruzen Sarutobi. I must say, I wasn't expecting you out here. I was expecting you to be trying to keep the village together along with the council after the 5th Hokage falling into a coma. I see you know of me, and of my rank in the village government. You've clearly done your research on the members of the village, and just kept the real you locked away. That side of you was locked away until the right time, isn't that right? Praised, and questioned the elder with calm features still gracing his face and body language. His trained eyes noticed the teen quickly jerk in shock, but quickly calmed himself and tried to act like nothing happened. But Naruto's eyes suddenly honed in on his like a hunter. His stance suddenly shifted into something dangerous, something deadly and cunning. Danzo was impressed, clearly he was right, and if he had gotten a hold of Naruto years earlier, Naruto now would be a force that the planet had never seen since the times of Madara and Hashirama. While Naruto wasn't to their level yet, he still was a force to be reckoned with after defeating Pain. But also recalling the other battles that Naruto has been in, Danzo knew that the blonde would be a warrior that would change the face of Gaia. It's always nice to know who I'm working with. But also I like knowing information about the place I live in, everything. The blonde-haired male commented ominously with the ghost of a grin on his face. I know you would do anything to protect the village, Naruto, just like a true ninja. But remember, every light casts a shadow. I was Hiruzen's dark shadow, much like Sasuke is yours. Every good act creates something bad at some point, and something bad creates something worse. Do you understand this? Naruto sent a nod to the elder, agreeing with his words, and storing those words for later. I'll let you continue on your travel, Naruto. However, I'm the temporary Hokage, just to let you know. Of course, since Tsunade is incapacitated at the moment, and with you having the most experience, you would be the best choice. Thank you for the advice, and for letting me know," replied the calm Naruto, still gazing unwaveringly at the experienced elder, who nodded back, and walked back into the shadow of the building. Danzo, however, was curious and worried. His Kotoa Matsukami didn't even work against Naruto, and it should have. He held eye contact with Naruto the whole time, and focused a great amount of chakra into it to make it work, and yet it didn't. It just didn't make sense. He would have to think about it later, he had plans to make, and meetings to get to. Naruto, however, looked away and continued on his walk, looking into the crater, and seeing the foundations of the new Konoha, taking in the beauty of urban creation. It was nowhere near the beauty and scale of nature, but seeing the people working together, building a better tomorrow was always a good thing. He closed his eyes, and revealed his hidden eyes for the first time in nearly 10 years. Upon opening his eyes again, his sclera was black, the blue in his eyes was black as well with a white outline, and his pupil was white. The white pupil also had veins that seemed to connect to the white outline where his pupil reached before. The veins also looked like broken glass in style. The white glowed eerily, even in the setting star of their world. These eyes are no longer hidden from me. These eyes of life, these life eyes. I will not hide anymore. Naruto commented with a calm smirk, before walking down the path once more. Konoha, old streets, Wednesday. He must have been walking for quite a while since him restarting his walk after encountering Danzo, as it was night now. The original streets and buildings of Konoha had scattered lights, due to the grounds not being rebuilt yet. This was also the same for the new grounds in the crater and in certain areas going up the impact zone, but for a different reason. He was stood still at the moment, his glowing white-starred eyes gazing at the heavens, seeing all the distant stars glistening in the darkness of space. His eyes seemed to mirror the night sky now, and he loved it. He always loved looking at the night sky for guidance, for help, but also just to look at the beauty of the cosmos. There was always light in darkness, no matter how small it was. Naruto smiles brightly, which would have looked strange if anyone was watching him due to his eyes that mirrored the veil of night. However, he noticed a rundown building in the corner of his eyes, and hell knows how it went unmissed by the citizens of the village, as it was a large building, and modern, despite its dilapidated state. Most of the exterior structure was damaged with time and environmental damage, with vines and leaves growing up various parts of the walls helping to further obscure the building from the world. He notices a sign above what appears to be boarded up doors. Frowning, he strolls over to the barricaded door, and uses his chakra to climb up the door to get to the sign above it. Moss and dirt have coated the sign through time. Rubbing away at the dirt on the sign, he began to uncover what was hidden beneath the muck. Upon clearing it, he cleaned his hands in a nearby lake, before returning and looking at the now partially unveiled sign. He spoke what was written in a confused tone of voice, and his facial features further proved to emphasize this. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza? Naruto seemed to ponder for a moment, before his eyes widened in shock and realization, before his face contorts into a confused one. What happened to this place? It doesn't even look like the same building. Why is it even like this, out of the way and abandoned? He continued to mumble questions, before seeing an opening in the wall. His questions stopped as he scrutinized it. He would have to climb inside through the high opening, but he wanted answers, damn it, and he wasn't going to back down. Plus, it's not as if anyone would even look here. No evidence of tracks can be seen on the ground, or on the trees around the former establishment, and he had made sure that his footprints wouldn't be seen. Steeling himself, Naruto climbed up to the opening in the wall, and tried to analyze what was just inside, beyond the opening. It was pitch black inside, nevertheless he could make out some chairs, a long table, a bookcase, and a small table. The walls were also dark, and it also has a black and white checkered stripe with a red outline on just below center, with the rest of the wall being a gray color. He couldn't make out much more in the room, so he climbed into the whole of the structure, and slowly, but surely, managed to climb inside without damaging any more of the brick and stone walls. Konoha, decaying Freddy Fazbear's Pizza reception, Wednesday. His feet landed on the firm ground with a thud that echoed through the room. Upon landing, he looked around the rundown room, seeing dust in the air and on the ground, more evidence to say that nobody had been here for years now. The smell was horrible as well, damp, musky, and stale. The smell permeated through the air, and no matter where he walked in the room, it was still there, although not as high in some places. He could see much clearer now though. He wondered if it was his eyes adjusting to the darkness, the Kyuubi enhancing it, or his life eyes improving it. Against one wall were metal chairs that had a small table in front of them, while near the wall on the opposite side a long table connected to a bookcase resided, with just 2 chairs behind the table. Naruto was right about the walls also being dark in tone. The walls are dark gray, with black and white checkered stripes with a red outline on running along the walls just below the center mark. Naruto could make out posters dotted about on the walls, but like the rest of the building, the posters, and what appeared to be drawings, were damaged with age, and/or coated with dirt. He sighed in sadness, and had crestfallen features. He looked at the sign on the desktop nearer the bookshelf. "This is the reception area, huh?" he mutters while glancing at some remaining books on the shelf. Strolling over and taking one of the books, he quickly noticed that this restaurant wasn't open for long, and it didn't have many customers, therefore, it wasn't able to gain a substantial amount of revenue. Only 5 years, with the last 2 years on the verge of shutting down. It apparently was the last Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Both this one and the previous one were closed down due to murders. Naruto seemed to trail off upon seeing that. He wondered which murders. Was it something to do with his friends? He had never heard of any other events, so he assumed it may have been covered up. But alas, the cover-up didn't last forever. He put the book down, before walking through the broken doorway that led into an open area. Konoha, decaying Freddy Fazbear's Pizza dining area, Wednesday. Upon walking through the threshold, he set his eyes on what he assumed was the dining area, and it also appears in a state of intense decay and disrepair. He notices rats scurrying across the floor, leaks in the ceiling, oil stains on the floor, and other assorted garbage strewn about. Naruto knew that the rest of the building would be in a similar state. It's a large room furnished with 6 tables lined up in 3 rows. In the darkness, the walls of the dining area cannot be seen easily, due to size and darkness enveloping it. The tables themselves are covered in white tablecloths decorated with confetti patterns, all of which were stained with dirt or torn up. The tables also had different colored party hats on them, but some were on the floor as well. Chairs lined the tables on both sides, with some missing or broken, but the chairs did look comfortable to sit on at one point. The chairs boasted confetti patterns as well, and there is a large gold star on the backrest of each one. The floor itself is tiled with black and red tiles, with a small section on the edges of the room having white and black tiles. A few doorways and corridors can be seen in the darkness, with the corridors at the very back, doorways on each side of the hall, and with another door next to the left corridor. Naruto stepped further into the hall and noticed the door next to the left corridor was completely caved in, with the room behind it seemingly having its ceiling and roof brought down into it, meaning that it was pointless even attempting to go through that way. The left corridor has star decorations and wires hanging from the ceiling. On the wall closest to Naruto are multiple posters. Cobwebs seem to be in various places in the corridor, much like the rest of the building. The floor tiles were red and black, however the tiles became blue and black towards the end. This was the case for both corridors. Papers are scattered about on the floors, with varying sizes of papers hanging on the walls. There was also a shelf just outside a door at the far end. The right hallway has 2 doors, one near the top, and another near the bottom. Star-shaped decorations hang from the ceiling, and various pictures are hung on the walls. At the end of the hallway is a corner littered with papers and trash. On the walls are papers, as well as a poster. There appears to be televisions of some type on the ground near the far door. Star-shaped decorations hang from the ceiling there as well. A bunch of wires seem to hang from the ceiling over the monitors near the furthest door. The one thing that Naruto keeps his eyes on for some time though, is a poster at the very end. It isn't coated with dirt or ruined like the other ones, this one is spotless. It appears to show the head of a female anthropomorphic creature, one with the features of a bear, but the fur was gold, and the eyes were fully black, soulless, and empty. It also seems to have messy golden hair too. The female bear in the poster was wearing a black top hat, and seemed to be smiling brightly. Around the eyes were a lighter shade of gold, and she also had black eyebrows and small black freckles on her muzzle. Naruto shook his head, hearing the eerie laugh of a female, and also catching his name being whispered. It had lasted for some time, ever since his eyes landed on the poster of the Golden Bear, but stopped when he looked away. He looked to the right wall, and noticed a large, cylindrical, purple-colored curtain, decorated with stars and sparkles. There stands a clean sign in front of the curtain that reads, "It's me." Naruto froze for a moment, and his breathing slowed suddenly. He felt a presence behind him. He quickly whisked around, prepared to defend himself against an unknown foe. Upon turning around though, he didn't see anyone, nor did he hear anyone. His eyes though landed on what appeared to be the show stage. On the wall are decorations that resemble clouds and stars. Like the majority of the building, there is a black and white checkered strip of wallpaper outlined in red on the wall. The floor of the stage was wooden. The wood was still in good condition, despite the decaying environment around it. What caught his attention more than the untouched wooden stage, was what was standing on the stage. On the stage were 3 anthropomorphic, animatronic characters. Naruto could tell that they were taller than he was, but they had very peculiar designs. The one on the left was an anthropomorphic rabbit in terms of design. Naruto could also easily see the fact that it was a female, but also he could see the android segments on it, due to the joints on the body, arms, legs, and ears. The rabbit is indigo colored with lighter shade patches on various parts of the body. She also has magenta eyes, a black nose, and shoulder-length spiky purple hair. Her ears are very long, and are capable of bending due to the joints in them. She wears a red bow tie. She is also carrying a dark red guitar. Around the eyes are a dark shade of purple in a pattern like his sage mode, and she also has thin black eyebrows. She also has paws and a small rabbit tail. In the middle was a bear, much like the one he saw in the poster, but this one was different, although the bear in the poster and the one here had similarities. Like with the rabbit, the bear was also female, and had machine joints at various places. The tall bear was a chocolate brown with light brown patterns on her stomach. She has ice blue eyes, a black nose, and lower back length seal brown face framing hair. She has short round ears, and like the rabbits, are able to move. She wears a black top hat and a bow tie, and is wielding a microphone with her right hand. She has black eyebrows, paws, 3 blackish freckles on both sides of her muzzle, and a beauty spot under her left eye. She also has a scar on her left hand, and around her eyes are seal brown markings like the rabbits. She also has a small bear tail. The final one, the one on the right, is a female chicken with the same mechanical features as the previous 2. She is bright yellow with an orange beak that looks like a mix between a chicken and a duck. She also has bright magenta eyes, black eyebrows, and orange legs. Her arms and hands are like wings, but seem to have hands with fingers. On the top of her head are 3 tufts of feathers, and she has 2 talons from each of her orange feet. She wears a white bib that reads, "Let's eat," in yellow bubbly letters, outlined in purple. The bib is flecked with tricolored triangles in patterns of 3, and what appears to be tiny stylized pizza slices. She also has a small tail. Her eyes have dark yellow markings around them, and she has dark yellow, round layers styled hair that reached her upper back. She is carrying a tray on her left hand. On her tray, there is a pink cupcake with 2 large yellow eyes, a yellow striped birthday candle with a vinyl candle light, buck teeth, and no wrapper. What the blonde hero didn't understand was why the girls, these cybernetic anthropomorphic creatures, had curves. Beautiful bodies and curves that would make any girl green with envy. He truly didn't understand that. He assumed that the ostentatious designs were to impress children, but seeing the curves and features of the animatronics made him question the audience these creations entertained. He was puzzled more so, but regarding another matter that connected these machines and this restaurant. The building didn't match what his memories told him was the restaurant. The building he remembered was bigger, brighter, and had more rooms. But also the robots on the stage were different. However, he never said he didn't remember these ones. He remembered these animatronics, but they looked broken and withered back then, yet here they were, clean and crisp, as if they had just been built. None of this makes fucking sense. The building is wrong. You, animatronics, are wrong. You lot are meant to be withered and damaged, yet you are all here, repaired, except F. Foxy and Goldie. This place is giving me nothing but bad memories. I lost all of my friends. I read that you machines were destroyed, all by that old bastard. Naruto hissed out as he began to break down. His body was trembling with rage, sadness, and regret. His eyes were a whirlpool of emotions, all of which were negative in nature. Inside Naruto's seal was the nine-tailed fox, better known as Kyuubi or Kurama, Naruto's love-hate friend. The beast opened a single eye, clearly hearing and feeling the storm of emotions its vessel was creating. It was going through Naruto's memories at the moment, learning everything that was originally hidden from pair of them. It was also likely that it was Kyuubi's exploring of Naruto's memories that was increasing this storm from a harsh wind with the odd lightning strikes, to a storm that rivaled the wind speeds of Neptune and lightning bolts that could only exist in Jupiter's liquid metallic hydrogen core. The rage that Naruto was feeling at the moment frightened the fox, causing it to slowly move backwards, deeper into its cell. Even Kyuubi wasn't wanting to be around the rage that her vessel was generating. Naruto quickly spun around to face a table, his face bearing the rage that the deities of the many races in the cosmos would cower in fear of. He kicked the whole table across the room, causing it to explode against the far wall. He quickly punched a number of the chairs around him, before punching the next table into hundreds of pieces. He was screaming profanities with a rage-filled voice, and tears streaming down his face, as he continued to cause destruction to the furniture and area. If he was focusing enough, he would be able to see that the eyes of the animatronics were glued to him, wide-eyed, scared, and yet filled with happiness when looking at him. The purple curtains that were closed before had parted, allowing anyone looking to see the occupant that was inside. It was a fox in terms of design, like the others was a female, but also like the others, the joints on the body, arms, legs, and ears could be seen. The fox has scarlet red fur with lighter shade patches on her stomach and muzzle. She also has pale yellow eyes, a black nose, and upper back length wavy dark red hair. Her ears are long, and are capable of moving due to the joints in them. She wears shredded brown pants. Her right hand is a hook. She wears an eye patch that is folded over her right eye, and around her eyes are dark red markings. She has dark red eyebrows and has black dots on her muzzle. She also has human-like hands and feet mixed with paws, and a large fluffy foxtail that had a white tip that gradually became scarlet along the tail. She also appears to have scars on her lower legs, left arm, and stomach. While the other animatronics had human-like teeth, the fox had sharp teeth. She too was looking at the carnage being brought about by the human male, clearly recognizing who it was, and clearly the other animatronics had also realized who the blonde was. Naruto, ye so broken. We'll help ye. The foxy pirate android thought sadly as she watched Naruto tear the entire room apart, cursing, and crying along his rampage. Clearly the girls on stage were also thinking something along those lines, but before they could act on it, Naruto fired a Rasengan at a wall in the corridor that held the boarded-up lavatories. The explosion caused a large amount of dust to be kicked up, and it shook the building as well. The pirate hoped the building wouldn't collapse due to that. If it did, they would all either be crushed, or even worse off in terms of damage. Even if they did survive, where would they go? Her musing was put on hold when she heard Naruto speak again, and he sounded so broken. I don't even know what the fucking hell I'm doing. I'm trashing a place that's ruined, and I'm making it worse. I couldn't even protect my first friends, the ones that I loved. I'm pathetic. I shouldn't have been born. Maybe they could have lived. But they had to die for a fucking sick plan created by a sick bastard. I hope you fucking burn in Shinigami's stomach, Sarutobi. Naruto roared out in pain, despair, and pure hate. His scream stopped the animatronics from moving. The bellow was nearly demonic, and it stunned them to hear him so angry and fractured. They wanted to hold him, tell him everything, and tell him that it would be alright. They then heard him sigh loudly, before seeing him walk back into the dining area again with heavy shoulders and a tired expression. He must have mentally worn himself out from his crying, swearing, and emotional words. Naruto's eyes were also emotionless and dull, despite tears still dripping from his eyes, which had now returned to their original white sclera, blue eyes, and black pupil. Naruto was exhausted. The strain of crying, the strain of his rage and carnage, the strain of remembrance had caused damage to his hands, arms, legs, heart and mind. His legs, arms and hands were scratched and bloody, no doubt from the punching, kicking, and frantic movements in his wrath-induced moment. His mind was knackered from the stress of remembering his lost friends, the lies of a former grandfather figure in the village, and the bitterness of him being weak when his friends needed him most. Yuko, Maiko, Rei, Hitomi, Chiko, Ryoko, Aika, Ko, Tomoko, Sachiko, Rina, Anae, Kumori, Motoyo, and Seika. I'm sorry. I never even got a chance to tell you all how I wanted to be around you, how much you meant to me. You were my loved ones, and I'm sorry. Naruto's vision blackened around the edges of his range, before he saw black, and collapsed. He felt so dead inside, so empty, so broken, it was as if his body was becoming a part of this dead, ruined building. His body was about to slam onto the damp, cold, dead floor, but a golden furred arm wrapped around his chest, stopping his descent, and saving him from more damage. Naruto? A soft feminine voice uttered softly. It sounded similar to the girl's laugh when Naruto had looked at the poster in right corridor. It was the golden bear in the poster. The bear was definitely of the female gender, and had machine joints at various places. The tall bear was a metallic gold with new gold patterns on her stomach, hands and muzzle. Her eyes are fully black, empty and soulless. She also has a black nose, black eyebrows, and messy metallic gold face framing hair. She has short round ears, and like the brown bears, are able to move. She wears a black top hat and a bow tie, both had a blue tint to them. She has paws and 3 blackish freckles on both sides of her muzzle. Like the other animatronics, she had patterns around her eyes that are new gold in color. She also has a small bear tail. The other animatronics left their original positions to gather near the golden bear, all of which were bearing sad and worried facial features. Not surprising, when taking into account of what they just witnessed. Goldie, how long was you watching all of that, and how long have we been asleep for? Came the questions from the brown bear, as she ran her paw along Naruto's back, trying to still figure out how it is Naruto, but also trying to figure out how he survived after what happened all those years ago. She was sure he died, that's what she had heard from the guards at the previous location, where it all happened. She cried for ages upon hearing it, and upon telling the others what she had heard. They wanted revenge against the population for what they had done, despite the fact they were still getting used to their new bodies. You 4 were in hibernation for 3 years, and I had picked up Naruto's soul signature when he approached the building. I have been keeping an eye on his signature ever since I was able, but to see him, in my arms. Here, I can't believe it. Naruto has returned to us, the one we wanted, has returned to us. He's changed so much, he's in so much pain, and he's so broken. The other animatronics looked at Goldie in disbelief and shock. 3 years? 3 years had passed since the place had closed down, and they were left here to rot with the building. What the heck happened in that time? 3 years? You're kidding, please tell me you're joking, Goldie. The purple rabbit uttered out hysterically, also running a paw along Naruto, but gripping his arm when she broke the silence. I'm not joking, Bonnie. I had used my powers to keep you 4 asleep, clean, and active, while checking the surrounding areas, trying to keep the building from falling apart, training my powers, and checking on the animatronics at the other location. The moment I picked up Naruto nearby, I stopped everything to make sure it was him, and when he looked at my poster, I woke you up, just in time for you to see him trash the place, and to hear his cries for help and forgiveness. She replied sharply, before trailing off with sadness and woe. She had heard everything that the blonde had said. It tore her apart to hear him say that their deaths had been his fault, when he had nothing to do with it. He didn't kill them, then shut them down years later, they all knew that, but he was blaming himself and saying that he wanted to die. That really hurt her, but upon hearing his confession regarding her and the others, the confession made her heart jump and beat rapidly. She was about to show herself to him, but couldn't due to him blacking out. Lucky she was able to get to him in time, otherwise he would be in more agony. She was using her powers to heal the injuries he sustained when venting his rage out on the building and furniture. The mental damage and scars that the blonde hero had would require creative thinking to try and cure, or at least ease. The question now though, would Naruto even recognize them? After all, the last time he saw them they were human, but like them, he talked with the animatronics, the main ones from the previous location, and them, who was at the old location, before they were moved here after that place closed down. But maybe they could try a different way, the way they used back then before their deaths, or tell him the secrets he had told them, to show it was indeed them. They didn't know why Naruto spent more time with them, but they were glad he did. They knew he was a kind kid but very selective when picking friends. They were glad he wanted to be their friends, although it was funny at the same time, one boy with many girlfriends. Now they're furry animatronics that had human-like traits mixed with animals. He wouldn't want to be around them now, right? He would want to have friends amongst his own kind, but they hoped that he wouldn't leave them alone again, although that was forced. Are ye talkin' the piss? With how damaged Naru's mind is, I'd be fucking surprised if he even could tease us. Came the pirate-like voice from the foxy robot as she waved her hook in Goldie's face. The brown bear slapped the back of the fox's head, and shook her head disapprovingly, before commenting in an upper-class tone. Profanities, Foxy, I told you to cut back on them. Foxy, who was nursing the back of her head from the paw slap from the bear, growled at her with narrowed eyes. Arrrrrrr, Freya, be missin' the point, tea's been 9 years. The chicken nodded to Foxy's statement, and added her own additions to it, in her soft warm voice. Foxy is not wrong, Freya. I mean, by what he was screaming out. It sounds like his memories were hidden, and they only just came back. His mind would still be trying to figure everything out. Chica looked down at the floor in sadness, and worriedly rubbed her left arm. Plus, we're not human anymore. Goldie nodded. Chica is right, we aren't human, but I am not losing him again. During his rants, I heard him mention a memory-blocking seal, and a memory-altering seal. Maybe the backpack he has on will shine more light into this. The other girls nodded, and carried Naruto to the show stage. Foxy had taken the bag from Naruto, while Naruto was being laid onto Goldie's lap to stop him from being on the cold floor. Goldie had also created a light above them to allow them to see what they was doing. The girls had emptied the contents from the bag that Naruto had carried with him. Scattered on the stage were spare clothes, some canned food, a few kunai, and some toiletries. It wasn't until Foxy got frustrated and slammed it against the wall. The act of doing so opened a secret compartment in the bag, showing 5 black books. Picking one each, the furry androids read through each of them, until they heard a sharp intake of breath, and a gasp following it. Freya, Chica, Bonnie, and Foxy turned to see the cause of it. It was Goldie, and she seemed to be focused in the book she was reading, and gradually, her face became stormy and cross. The girls were about to ask what was wrong, until the golden bear spoke venomously. Read, you'll find the whole story regarding what Naruto was screaming about in his cries. I'm not surprised Naruto vented out his rage, because I'm tempted to do the same, but direct it to the whole family lines of nearly everyone in Konoha. The other girls, except Bonnie, quickly gathered behind Goldie, not even wanting to doubt or delay her command, especially with that tone of voice she used. I think you'll need this to complete what I believe you've just found in your book. Bonnie harshly suggested as she got up, and showed Goldie the book, putting them side by side. The book I was reading was continuing on from the book you're reading. The girls read through the 2 books. The third's book contained the start to it all. They read about the Naruto Uzumaki weapon plan, Uzumaki clan demise. Hiding of all information regarding the Uzumaki clan, but also, Naruto's loyalty preparation and procedure. The animatronics knew all about the Uzumaki clan. After all, it was the Uzumaki clan that created them. The Uzumakis naturally possess incredibly strong life forces, granting them very long lifespans. The person who repaired them, Mito Uzumaki, was born before the founding of Konoha yet lived well into the 2nd reign of the 3rd Hokage. They could also recover from injuries and exhaustion in short periods of time, and survive the removal of tailed beasts, although they are still left near death afterwards. They could also harness and accelerate their rejuvenative traits by biting and sucking their chakra, even though that was dangerous to use too regularly. They were most famed for their fuinjutsu, sealing techniques, and many other things. They could also produce adamantine chains made of their own chakra. What the world didn't know, was that the land of whirlpools was incredibly advanced in terms of technology, far more advanced than the neighboring lands and nations of Gaia. It was to the point where they had the ability to go to the moon, had androids walking around the streets and environment of the old island, had computers and other high-tech pieces of equipment. But judging by this book, and what Mito had told them before she died, Mito didn't know her homeland was destroyed, didn't know of Naruto's existence, and that Konoha was responsible for the catastrophe that befell the Uzumaki clan. The third Hokage had sent out secret orders to agents hidden in Uzushio to disable the security seals around the village, and place some potent explosives at critical points in the village. While at the same time, agents had also given information to the other nations regarding the powerful clan, and how to take it out. Kumo, Iwa, Mist, Suna, and a number of minor villages sent an army towards the land of whirlpools, an army that consisted of nearly 40,000 people. Even though the Uzumaki clan lost, and was forced to scatter across the planet, the enemy army that held 40,000 at the start of the Uzushio invasion, left with only 11 people. That left a deep scar across the many nations of the planet, knowing that one clan could do that. Mito clearly didn't know her home was destroyed by all those nations, who had been given the information by Konoha. The animatronics that are in Konoha right now, were given as gifts by Uzushio for the new chain of restaurants that were built in the Hidden Leaf Village. Fredbear's Family Diner, FFD. And that's where the Naruto Uzumaki weapon plan, and Naruto's loyalty preparation and procedure plan, came into play. FFD was in service for a very long time, until 13 years ago, where it was forcibly shut down due to murders. 4 years later, the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, FFP, opened up with newer toy animatronics, while Foxy, Freya, Bonnie, Chica, and Goldie were left in the back room, not to be rebuilt due to age. Not long after it opened, the place was forced to be shut down not even a month into opening up again, due to more murders. Then FFP opened up again a year later with the old furry androids upgraded and repaired by Mito before her passing. The newer animatronics killed a number of people in the new location for a total of 5 years, before the place was shut down, and they too, like the other animatronics in the previous location, were left to be forgotten. To fade away into the pages of history. Hiruzen Sarutobi had all of those people killed, and all of those places shut down, because they all had one thing in common. Naruto Uzumaki. Although the last establishment, this one, was closed down by Fazbear due to the health board, murders, and his age. The plan, which had been the third's original plan before it moved to the fifth Hokage, was to groom Naruto to be the weapon of the village. He had gotten a large number of clans and people involved with this plan, not the entire village, but enough of it to seem as if it was the whole village. They had planned the attacks on Naruto during his young life, both physically and mentally, so that by thwarting these attacks, Naruto would rely on him. Of course, Naruto would want friends of other ages, so the third took this into account, and got Naruto to make friends, who would try to subtly coerce loyalty into the blonde. But when Naruto made friends what weren't ones that Hiruzen wanted the young Uzumaki to be with, and when Naruto wasn't showing signs of budging, the former third Hokage had them removed, then sealed away Naruto's memories of those friends, and created fake ones. Then when Naruto made more friends years later, they were also dealt with. The plan to mold Naruto had been successful once more, but when Jiraiya stepped into the picture, the destruction of the Uchiha clan, and the death of the third happened, a spanner had been thrown into the workings of the plan. The third's plan didn't die with him though, as he had contacted Tsunade before his demise, and convinced her to continue the plan, since Jiraiya would not. The seals that were placed on Naruto had been replaced numerous times, but because they were long-lasting, they didn't need to be reapplied often. It was a sickening way to implant loyalty into the blonde, and it had worked. But now, the plan was in tatters, Naruto was fully aware of it, and he was now holding all the cards as it were. It would also explain why Naruto didn't return to any of the Uzumaki-built restaurants, since they were built by the same clan that he was unknowingly a part of. The information was hidden from him. The third and fifth both made comments about Naruto acting though, almost as if he knew what was going on. However, the latter part wasn't true. Naruto didn't know what had been hidden from him, but Naruto had been acting, and hiding information from everyone. Naruto was cunning, intelligent, and always plotting. The animatronics were in tears, tears of rage, sadness, and pure hatred. They were all shaking or twitching due to what they just read. They were furious, disgusted, and resentful. But they all turned their eyes to Naruto, the victim of all of this. It wasn't surprising that Naruto exploded like that. Finding out that your entire life had been a lie from the get-go would scar anyone, or even cause them to do questionable acts, either to other people, or to themselves. Consequences be damned. The minute he woke up, they were going to reintroduce themselves to Naruto, sort his fractured mind out, and get him out of Konoha along with the other animatronics to a new location. Goldie, I want you to contact all of the girls, tell them everything that's happened and tell them everything we have learned. Once Naruto wakes up, we'll tell him who we are, and then we'll take him to the other girls. They'll be happy to see him, and it will be a step in mending his mind. At the moment, his mind is shattered like a sword, but it can be repaired and rebuilt. We need to act, now. Freya demanded, before getting determined. A fire seemed to light up in her eyes. She knew what she was going to do, and nothing was going to stop it. I'm going to do it now. It's going to be pulling at their heartstrings hearing this. No doubt you'll hear their screams of fury from here. Goldie replied to the brown bear. She was about to use her unnatural powers to send her ghost body to the other location, but before she could, a groan reached her ears. The groan had reached the ears of all of them. Looking down, the inhabited animatronics realized that it came from Naruto. He was tossing and turning, and he was trying to wake up. The reunion would come sooner, rather than later. Naruto tried to open his tired eyes, with no success at first, but after struggling for a minute, he groggily opened his eyes again, noticing blurred figures above him, all of which were looking down at him. He wondered what time it was, as it was bright in the room he was in. Was it the hospital? No, the ceiling and walls looked damaged and decrepit. But also the figures over his head didn't look human, but at the same time, they did. They looked like anthropomorphic creatures, all of which were female. He focused his eyes, seeing clearly that they were the animatronics that he had seen before, only this time he could see Foxy, and the full body of the golden bear he saw in the poster. His breathing sped up, clearly in a worried state of mind, due to him being surrounded by these robots. Acting on instinct, Naruto bolts off of the lap of the golden bear so fast it looks as if he's flying, before landing in the middle of the dining area. He tries to calm his speeding heart, as his eyes focused on the animatronics, whom have moved into standing up positions. All of the girls' eyes were glued to him, all of which contained varying emotions along the lines of anxiousness, fear, and worry. They also had small sparks of hope in them. The reason for that one though escaped Naruto, as he was frantically thinking about what to do now. Naruto, Naru Whirlpool, please calm down, we're not going to hurt you. Bonnie said as her ears flattered against her head worriedly. She was wanting to cling on to him, and quickly try to sort things out. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the bunny. How do you know my name? Better yet, why the hell did you go through all my stuff? He questions in a hostile tone of voice. He knew them, but they were broken and damaged. How were they repaired? But also, why did that voice sound familiar? It sounded like a friend of his that was killed. Naru, laddie, ye wouldn't believe us. Let the captain explain, please. The blonde looked at the pirate fox with the same angry eyes he had given the purple bunny. There as was again, the fox's voice also sounded similar to him. This couldn't be a coincidence. He looked down in sadness and sighed loudly. I read that you were all destroyed, the old bastard and the old hag both wrote it down. There was also a side thought to that. That, and my true friends were killed by the old relic. But why does the bunny and the fox sound like two of them? Freya's dejected eyes locked with Naruto's. She was going to explain to him what the truth was. We were going to be dismantled, but at the last second, it was stopped. We would be given a longer death sentence, locked away for all eternity in the building. Mito Uzumaki repaired us, and opened up a new place, this place, while giving the other animatronics updates and repairs like she did for us. She died after completing them, and giving the company back to Fazbear, the original owner and founder, who was a close friend of hers. When we died, we had heard that you were killed, that blinded us, and we killed many people because of that. We were angry, we were hurt, we thought we lost our Naru Whirlpool. It seems we were all forced into this. You having your memories wiped, and us being told you were dead. Chika interjected softly, knowing that this is where Freya was heading to in her speech to Naruto. The blonde seemed to inch closer to them. He was so hurt, and he had tears forming in his eyes. He recognized the voices of the androids. They sounded like his friends. It was a long shot, but maybe his friends were still around, different, but still alive. Unless, can you prove to me that you're Yuko, Maiko, Rei, Hitomi, and Chiko? I want to make sure. Naruto was scared, worried, but he wanted to believe, he wanted it to be them. The ones he had lost all those years ago, and now he had hopefully been reunited with. The girls wanted to comfort him, but understood his reasoning. Goldie stepped towards Naruto gingerly, knowing what to do straight off the bat. She kept walking until she was standing right in front of him, towering over him. She raised her paw, and rested it on his chest where his heart was. Naruto let out a shaky breath when she did. He looked up at her eyes as she started to trace patterns onto his chest over his heart, making finger and hand gestures that only they knew. It was traces of spirals, animals, the stars and moon, before making hand gestures between the two of them. Naruto's eyes widened in happiness. They had remembered, it was truly them. Naruto hugged Goldie tightly, earning a light squeak from the animatronic in question. She blushed lightly, and hugged him back. She could hear him sniffle every so often. The other girls gathered around, and tried hugging Naruto too. The poor boy was getting smothered by the girls due to his head ending up in their breasts. Their soft, strangely warm, furred bodies embracing him one after the other after they had given up trying to hug him at the same time. After the heartwarming cuddles, they all went back to the stage, and chatted for ages. Not long into chats though, Goldie used her powers to send her ghost form to the other location, and the secret room in this location to tell the others everything what they had learned, and everything that had transpired not long ago. To keep Naruto off of the floor, Goldie had Naruto sit in her lap, much to the glares and jealousy of the others. While this is happening, Naruto was chatting with the others since Goldie was using her powers to communicate with the others. The girls were telling Naruto what had happened to them after his death, from their perspective and Naruto's memory wiping from his. Mito had rebuilt them like they had explained earlier, but had upgraded them with very natural capabilities for an organic, but completely bizarre one regarding synthetic life. The girls had gotten used to their more noticeable female figures, their new bodies, but also their upgrades. The Uzumaki clan was far more advanced than people thought, and clearly Mito had access to that technology before her death, but had hid it just in time as well. Naruto listened to their stories about how they coped after his rumored demise. It broke his heart to hear what they went through when they were told he had died. He was strangely happy when they told him that they had killed a few people, and when asked, Naruto told them that those people had attacked him when he was growing up, since Hiruzen and Tsunade had both written down the individuals involved with the plan. Naruto had also asked them why the restaurant was in such poor condition. Apparently, during his time away with Jiraiya, the annual electrical storms and supercells struck Konoha fiercely, damaging the village. While the buildings in the village were repaired by their various owners, FFP was left due to not being in use. When Naruto was about to tell them what he had been doing since their forced separation, Bonnie suggested waiting on that, and tell all of them at the same time, to save him repeating it over and over again. Naruto reluctantly agreed, but he was curious about meeting the others again. He hopes that they remember him, after all it had been nearly 10 years. Goldie then woke up, meaning she wasn't communicating with the other girls anymore. She had also teleported one of them to the other location, the one from the secret room in this FFP. She hugged Naruto from behind, her warm breath tickling his skin, her lips grazing his ear. Naruto shuddered lightly at both her furry hug, and her breath touching his skin. The other girls looked at Goldie, they were annoyed at her hogging Naruto all to herself. I've told the others everything regarding what we've learnt, I've also told them that we have Naruto right now. Some were skeptical, not surprising given the amount of time that passed, and being told he was dead. But when we display Naru Whirlpool to them, they'll easily recognize who it is like we did. Goldie commented with optimism, her golden face bearing a bright smile. They best do, Goldie. Foxy said with a slight growl, letting the others know that if the other animatronics don't identify him, she would rip into them like there was no tomorrow. I think it's time to take you to the other place. You need to see them again, but also, their building is in much better condition than ours. Goldie announced to Naruto. The blonde was about to question her about that, but she beat him to the punch. Because that building and the former one was built by the Uzumaki clan, and they had more postmodern methods of construction. Their buildings could withstand anything. This building wasn't built by Uzushio, and was built by Konoha. That alone should tell you that the build quality is shit, Foxy suggested for her in her pirate accent. Bonnie and Chica palmed their heads. Freya wanted to smack Foxy again, as she was irritated with her foul mouth. Naruto smiled, and chuckled at the fox's blunt opinion of the place. Goldie didn't say anything for a second before continuing. The build quality is appalling, shoddy, and yeah, it is shit, Foxy is right about that. Naruto burst out laughing, he couldn't hold it anymore. The brown bear wanted to smack her face against the wall, she didn't like swearing at all. It was so vulgar, so uncivilized in her opinion. Instead of whacking her head against the wall, she resorted to twitching her eyebrow angrily. Shall we get going then, before Freya bursts a vein over the profanities? Bonnie barely got out through her own laughs at Freya's misfortune. Naruto, upon regaining control of his laughing, nodded at Bonnie, agreeing with her. He wanted to see the others again, even if it would be hard at first. He would face them head on, and convince them while staring into their eyes, not hiding behind Goldie or the ones here. His eyes lit up with determination, and he smiled brightly. Yeah, let's get going. We need to get the family back together again. I won't hide either. I need to show them that I am still here, that I'm still alive. That I'm a voice, not an echo. Goldie smiled at his declaration, as did the other girls. She raised a brow at his analogy, but it was interesting to say the least. They all stood up, with Naruto having to reluctantly climb off of Goldie. Upon collecting his stuff and putting the bag over his shoulder once again, he stood in the middle of all of them. The blonde was surrounded by the taller females. Freya placed a hand on Goldie, Bonnie put her paw on Freya. Chica continued the circuit by placing her hand on Bonnie. Foxy placed her hooked hand on Chica, while Goldie placing a bare paw on the fox and the other on Naruto. They were all connected now, and not even 2 seconds later, they vanished, not in a flash, not a bang, not even a vortex. It was silent, almost as if they suddenly cloaked. The light that the golden bear had put up earlier, starting dimming before fading away, returning the former establishment to the land of darkness. It was dark, really dark. It was unnervingly gloomy. A veil of blackness seemed to exist here, wherever here was. If anyone was standing in this shroud of tenebrosity, they wouldn't be able to see an inch in front of them. It was strangely quiet as well, eerily so. An unnatural silence seemed to exist in this dark world. A strange static-like sound suddenly is heard without warning, then not even a second later, 6 figures are stood in the darkness of the environment. No flash of light was seen, no vortex, no nothing. The figures just appeared in the thick shadow, and they were all connected. Yuko, Maiko, Rei, Hitomi, Chico. Where are we? I can't see a thing. Questioned an alarmed male, who seemed to move his head from side to side, trying to see through the pitch-black sea around him. Goldie, who is also known as Rei, reassured him by rubbing his shoulder and chest. It's all right, Naruto, it's just the other girls playing tricks. See if you can see with your life eyes. Naruto nodded and complied with her suggestion. His eyes then suddenly changed once again, his blue eyes swiftly changing to the life eyes state. The eyes glowed in the dark, with the strange white pupil with the broken glass-like edges stretching from it. The other girls smiled, before their eyes light up in the dark, illuminating the immediate area around their eyes. Naruto's eye twitches in annoyance, he grumbles lightly before looking around the room. I can't see far, I still need to get used to these eyes again, since they were sealed from me by those bastards abusing their power. They hear a groan of annoyance, which clearly must have come from Freya, due to her eyes moving from side to side, indicating that she shook her head. Can we have the lights on, girls? Shouted Bonnie as she wanted Naruto to see their childhood, and the friends that have missed him so. She just hopes that they will quickly recognize who it is. The power hums on, the lights flicker and turn on, not a tinted orange or yellow as one normally gets, but a tint of blue screamed from the lights embedded in the ceiling. Naruto looks forward to see the show stage, and it appears to be very wide in construction, with multiple small, star-shaped decorations hanging from the ceiling. On the back wall is a large, colorful banner that hangs from the ceiling, reading, "Happy Birthday," in large red letters with white outlines. The floor of the stage is wooden, but the wood is dark in tone, but very resilient by the looks of it. The walls of the show stage are covered with black and white checkered tiles. He casts his eyes to what he remembered as the game area, with its most noticeable feature being a carousel. The seats of the carousel are based on the Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy animatronics. They appear to be based on the upgraded original versions of the animatronics, not the toy ones that this establishment had. There are also 5 balloons residing there against the wall, with colors similar to the 4 animatronics he arrived with. Not far from those balloons are some large gift boxes with confetti-styled wrapping paper and balloons in multiple colors. The floor of that area, like the rest of the main area, is a carpet with black and white squares in a checkered pattern. There are many multicolored stars hanging by strings from the ceiling. Closer to Naruto, and the others, are 8 wooden and metal tables draped with white tablecloths, each lined with 2 rows of party hats, and surrounded by very comfy chairs. Looking left from the game area, he sees a shiny topped counter in front of some shelves. On the shelves are plush versions of Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica, Foxy, Toy Bonnie, Toy Freddy, and Toy Chica. There are also posters depicting the toy animatronics on the wall. The poster reads, "Rock, Eat, Party, and Play." Phrases associated with Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, Toy Freddy, and Toy Foxy, respectively. On the side of the counter, there is a poster showing the toy bear, rabbit, and chicken with the words, "Celebrate." There are festive pizza decorations on the walls, and several colored balloons can be seen decorating the corner. Some child drawings are hung on the wall behind a large single gift box that has cyan wrapping paper, trimmed with purple ribbon. Naruto spots a number of doors dotted around, 1 on the left wall, 1 on the right, and 2 on the furthest wall from him. Leading to the kitchen, a main corridor, Kids Cove, and the reception correspondingly. He also notices posters on the walls of the large room, varying from images of the androids, menus, and drawings made by children. He sighs happily as he walks away from the girls he arrived with. This was the place he remembered. He looked down bitterly. The place where I had so many friends, only for all of you to be removed by that asshole. Then there was those at Fredbear's. Rina, Motoyo, and Seika. They were older than me, but I cared for them, and like I admitted at the other place, you were all my loved ones. Naruto reminisces as he turns to look at the group that brought him here, the robots that held the souls of 5 of his friends. Goldie nodded. She knew Rina, Motoyo, and Seika. She also knew that they were still around. Can you remember the gifts that you gave them, or what they gave you? She asked, with the inkling of an idea. She was going to get Naruto to unknowingly convince the hidden girls here that he is indeed him. Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, and Freya looked at Goldie with wonder in their eyes, clearly not understanding why she would ask that of him. Then it hit Freya, who smiled knowingly. She knew what Ray was trying to pull now, and used the mental link that she had to tell the other girls. Not a bad idea, Ray. Mentally praised Bonnie, before she looked to the stage slyly. She knew the others were there, waiting. Invisibility was their speciality. Cheeky shadows. Well, I remember the gifts they gave me, and the ones I gave you, them. For Rina, I made her arm warmers that acted like gloves, and thigh-long socks. Both had black and white stripes. I made them for her during our time in the orphanage, so she could keep warm during the cold nights. Plus when we were forced onto the streets by the old hag for an owner, me for being the container to Kyuubi, and her for having supernatural powers, they became more useful for her. Rina and I had the same eyes, these life eyes, but she was much better than I was at using them. She vanished when I was 4, and I blamed Fredbear's, but now I know the truth behind that. One of the invisible characters twitched, the unknown person felt their heartbeat, and their cheeks heat up. For her, Naruto had indeed returned, but would he even identify her in her new body? Naruto continued speaking, his face starting to show signs of depression and fragmentation. I had 2 other friends that were similar in age to Rina, with her being 8 when she died. Motoyo and Seika, they were the other friends I had. Motoyo I met first at Fredbear's, and Seika I met outside the same establishment a few days later. We befriended Seika, and I introduced them to Rina not long after to form a tight circle of friends. Even though I was younger, being 4, I liked being around the 3 of them, and they didn't push me aside like I was nothing. Motoyo and Seika gave me plush versions of Faya Bear and Spring Bonnie, which I still have in a seal scroll I have in my arm. I gave them necklaces, since I didn't know where to get plushies. I gave a seashell necklace to Seika, and I gave Sound Note necklace to Motoyo. I was going to give Rina a puppet mask necklace, but that happened. A few days after Reina's death, Motoyo and Seika vanished as well, then I had my memory wiped. I really cared for them, all of them. He croaks out as he looks around with tears of frustration forming in his eyes. He trembles, trying to contain the amount of hate he has. He doesn't want to vent out his anger here. Not here, never here. Freya frowned as she looked at the poor emotional blonde. She noticed the whisker marks on his cheeks grow and become wilder, his hair becoming more untamed, and his fangs and nails sharpening. She glanced at the others around her. Clearly they saw the feral changes to the distraught teen. She knew Goldie would have to stop Naruto if he runs amok. What about the ones you met here, Naru Whirlpool? Goldie pressed. She knew she was really pushing his buttons with this, and opening wounds that were forcibly inflicted then shut, but this was needed. For him and them. Myself, Yuko, Maiko, Hitomi, and Chiko. You know us, but what about Ryoko, Aika, Ko, Tomoko, Sachiko, Ane, and Kumori? You remember them too, right? The unpredictable ninja quickly spun round, so fast that it nearly gave him whiplash. The cracking of a whip would fit very well for how fast he was moving. He leveled a heart-stopping glare at her, before it quickly softened. He sighed sadly. Naruto didn't want to be angry, but it was hard to not be livid. The blonde shinobi spoke as he gazed at the five before him. His voice was cracking emotionally. I remember the day I met all of you were in the fourth party room. The 12 of you were all sitting around the long table of that room eating meals. I didn't want to be in the other party rooms because the people in them were openly glaring at me and muttering snide comments under their breaths. I went into the room you were in to eat my meal, since the staff here seemed to like me, oddly. Although now that I look back on it, they most likely knew what I really was, and didn't see me as the Kyuubi. The girls nod at him, remembering their first meeting. They remembered him walking to the table they were on, all shy and nervous. It was strangely adorable. The blonde continued his trip down memory lane. I sat on the end of the table next to Ane and started to eat my meal. All of you stopped eating and looked at me and tried talking to me, but I was too nervous. I eventually told you my name after Yuko called me a wimp. Foxy flinched at that. She had been hoping he wouldn't remember that remark. I remember telling you all that I had nowhere else to sit, so I sat next to Ane. Not long into our one-sided conversation, Toy Bonnie came in and did a guitar solo for us until we cheered. She gave us all hugs before leaving, whereupon doing so, Ane muttered that Toy Bonnie was her favorite, but she did wonder what the animatronic would look like if it was black from head to toe. Then all of you started explaining who your favorite android was. When Ko asked me who my favorite was, I replied with, all of them. We ended up talking for a while before we left, however we noticed the parts and service door open and peeked inside, where we then saw the withered machines. We made a promise to see them the next day, which we did. The blonde male walked around a nearby table during his reminiscing. During his tale, a tear was tracing down his cheek slowly. He sighed before looking back to the girls. Glancing at the show stage with a frown, he was starting to stress out due to the emotional baggage. He couldn't calm down, due to him remembering all this. His mind was still such a mess. He eventually slowed down his rapid breathing, before looking up at the beautiful brown ceiling above. He sighed before continuing his musing. I remember getting gifts, all of you. I got you plushies of your favorite animatronics. You do? Questioned Chika as she clasped her wings together. This would help solidify the fact that this was Naruto. She will admit that she did have some doubts, but listening to this was helping her, and it was no doubt easing the others also. Foxy, Bonnie, Golden Freddy, Chika, Toy Foxy, Toy Bonnie, Toy Freddy, Toy Chika, Balloon Girl, Shadow Bonnie, and Purple, Shadow Freddy. For Yuko, Maiko, Rei, Hitomi, Chiko, Ryoko, Aika, Ko, Tomoko, Sachiko, Ane, and Kumori respectively. I remember because I had asked Kakashi to aid me in making them. He was one of the few people I trusted, and that trust is still there to this day. He had gotten a good friend of his to make them to the best quality, often teasing me about the fact I was buying them for girls. He was saying that I had a crush on you lot. Now that I remember, he said that I had a crush on Rina, Motoyo, and Seika as well. Truth is, all the girls in the room, the ones visible and not visible, were waiting with wide eyes and bated breath. Did Naruto have a crush on them, like they did with him? He sighed deeply, letting out tears of happiness and sadness. He beamed a large smile at the girls. I did have a crush on you, all of you. You all taught me valuable things, you were happy to be around me, you cared about me, and you didn't push me away. You all seemed to enjoy being around me. You were my loved ones. Yuko, Maiko, Rei, Hitomi, Chiko, Ryoko, Aika, Ko, Tomoko, Sachiko, Ane, Komori, Rina, Motoyo, and Seika. You meant so much to me, I wanted to be around you forever. He broke down crying, but feeling lighter than he's ever been, releasing his feelings regarding the girls that he was in front of. The girls were all states of shock, happiness, and ecstasy. The hidden ones were just the same. All of the haunted anthropomorphic robots were so happy to hear this news. It would make things easier for their plan to go forward. However, one simple question remained. Naru, why didn't he tell us about wanting to set sail with us? Questioned the Yuko-controlled Foxy, as this was most likely a question that popped up in all of their minds. Naruto, who was stood in front of a table, sat down on the firm table top and sighed loudly. It sounded tired and broken, but also relieved. When he spoke though, it sounded serious, but held an undercurrent of despondency. He looked at them with dull eyes, the white glowing pupil seemed dim as well. How could I? I loved all of you, I couldn't pick. Plus with the case with Rina, Motoyo, and Seika. I was 4, they was 8 and 7 in ages. The blonde shook his head negatively and his hands gesturing with a sad tone. No, I couldn't do that, plus with how close you all were. I didn't want to break up the friendships you had. So I decided to not pursue my feelings, knowing that no matter what, we'd all get hurt. But I never stopped loving each and every one of you. You never stopped loving them and us, but you didn't want to hurt us. Freya whispered before smiling lightly at him. Small trickles of tears traced down her cheeks. This was the case for some of the others, even the more stubborn ones. Naruto? Goldie started as she gained the attention of the whiskered teenager. Were you also nervous? Naruto raised a brow at her. Where was she going with this? Seeing his confusion, the golden bear continued and elaborated. Were you nervous about getting with someone? Worried about what the village would do if they found out you was with someone, or didn't you know what to do? Since I know we had to teach you a number of things during our time here. Wait, that brings up another one. Were you ashamed? Did you think we were too good for you? The perplexed male realized what she was asking. He took off his backpack and placed it on the table next to him, before climbing off the table, and pushing away from it. He ran a hand through his hair and breathed loudly. I would say, yes, to all of them. I was nervous getting with someone, yes. I also was worried about what the villagers would do since they treat me so nicely, and it made me worry what they would do to you at the time. The girls easily heard the sarcasm emanating from his voice clearly regarding the villagers treating him nicely. And the others? Bonnie said as she kept her magenta eyes locked the white broken pupil of his eyes. She wanted to see his blue ones again. I wouldn't know what to do even if I did get with you. I've never had a relationship, so I was anxious about upsetting you. I am thankful that you all taught me various skills, but what did I teach you? All I was showing was how much of a loser I was in comparison to you girls. I wasn't civilized, I was a mess. All I had going for me was my enthusiastic and kind nature. It's not as if I could ask all of you out, I mean, that would hurt you all, so like I said, I kept quiet. The animatronics looked at the blonde in sorrow. He didn't need to think like that. Yes, he was messy, he wasn't highly civilized, and his manners needed a bit of work. But he should never think that they were too good for him. They didn't care. They wanted him. Naru Whirlpool, started Freya in her soft well-mannered voice, fidgeting slight. It was time to tell him the truth. She didn't know how he would take it, but she could tell that the invisible audience was eager to make their presence known. It would be heartwarming, but would it damage Naruto even more? She continued, casting her ice blue eyes to his life eyes. I'm almost afraid to tell you, but your friends didn't die. Yes, Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi had them and is killed, but... What are you trying to tell me, Hitomi? Naruto interrupted with a frown and tears threatening to fall from his eyes. He didn't want to be reminded of their deaths all of the time. He knows he couldn't keep their passing out of his head, even though 5 of those friends somehow had cheated death in the most bizarre way. Seriously, their souls took over the bodies of androids. That was bizarre. Naruto, they did the same thing as this. They also haunted the animatronics, with 2 becoming something else. We had been given life by the first of us to pass away. The brown bear explained as she saw the pained expression on Naruto's distraught face. He looked at her with wide eyes, his mouth open as well. Naruto was trying to comprehend what she just said. The others had taken control of the other robots? How? How? Who was the first to die, and why did that person, soul, animatronic bring the others back? Why did they put the souls of his friends into these machines? A part of him didn't complain about his friends being alive again, even if they were in robotic bodies. He was happy that they were alive, but he was still so shocked. He was dead still, silent. But his facial features and eyes were enough to tell the audience before him that he was in chaos, pain, and going through a self-destruction of some sort. But they could see him trying to grasp the hope he desperately wanted. He didn't want this to be a dream. He didn't want this to be a sick prank, or a nightmare. "What did you say?" The blonde whispered with no emotion, as his eyes seemed to glow. The vein patterns connecting his pupil to the ring around it was thickening, and making the iris white as well. It was slowly, but surely, changing and glowing with hope. Naruto was beginning to fall apart. He had tears coming down his eyes. His heart was beating erratically. "Yar, laddie, what the captain is trying to tell ya, 'tis that the other girls are right here, and hiding." The foxy buccaneer answered with her feminine pirate voice. She turned and looked at the show stage, before shouting. A soft smile was prominent on her furred features. "Ye girls can drop the sail." And, as if on cue, a number of figures faded into view on the stage. About 8 female androids faded into existence, with 2 shadows forming into the shapes of 2 more robots. From right to left, Naruto looked at the previously hidden animatronics, and all of them were female. The first one Naruto laid his eyes on was Toy Foxy, Mangle. It was a fox-like Foxy, but there were noticeable differences in terms of design. One difference is that her snout was smaller in size. The joints on the body, arms, legs, and ears could be seen. The fox has snow-white fur with pink patches in her ears, on her snout, and on her eyelids. She also had a pink love heart on her stomach. She has rosy red cheeks, and similar color lipstick and nail polish. She also has golden yellow eyes, a black nose, and untamed pink hair reaching her upper back. Her ears are long, and are capable of moving due to the joints in them. She wears no clothing apart from a pink bow tie. She has pink eyebrows, and has black dots on her muzzle. She also has human-like hands and feet mixed with paws, and a large fluffy foxtail that had a pink tip. She, like Foxy, has sharp teeth. The sclera in her left eye is also black. Toy Bonnie, or Bonbon, followed, and she was an anthropomorphic rabbit, similar to Bonnie in terms of design. She had android joints on the body, arms, legs, and ears. The rabbit is baby blue with powder blue patterns on her belly, muzzle, paws, and in her ears. She also has jade green eyes, magenta eyelids, a black nose, and rosy red cheeks. She has chin length, sky blue hair with bangs. Her ears are long, shorter than Bonnie's, but wider, and are capable of bending due to the joints in them. She wears an oversized red bow tie, red panties, has whisker spots, and buck teeth. She also has thin black eyebrows. She also has paws and a small ball rabbit tail. Toy Freya, or Franny, follows on from Bonbon. Like with the rabbit, the bear also had machine joints at various places. The bear was cocoa brown with light brown patterns on her stomach, snout, and inner ears. She has liberty blue eyes, a black nose, light brown eyelids, and black whisker spots. She has shoulder-length, cocoa brown face framing hair. She has short oval ears that, like the others, are able to move. She wears a black top hat with a red stripe, a bow tie with 2 buttons beneath it, and black pants. She also is brandishing a microphone with her right hand. She has black eyebrows, red cheeks, and she has paws. She also has a small bear tail. Continuing down the line, Naruto casts his eyes on Toy Chica. The chicken has the same mechanical features as the previous ones. She is yellow with an orange beak. She also has Crayola blue eyes, black eyebrows, pink blushed cheeks, and orange feet with talons coming from them. On the top of her head are 3 curved tufts of feathers. She wears a white bib that reads, "Let's Party," in yellow bubbly letters, outlined in pink. The bib is flecked with tricolored confetti, and what appears to be tiny stylized pizza slices. She also wears pink panties. She also has a small tail, black eyelids, and she has dark yellow, messy hair that reached her neck. She is carrying a cupcake on a plate in her left hand. Resting on the plate is a pink cupcake with two large blue eyes, a blue striped birthday candle with a vinyl candle light, with a light brown wrapper. The toy animatronics were taller than Naruto, but smaller than Goldie, Freya, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. Standing next to the toy chicken is Balloon Girl, whom is a human-like animatronic with peach-colored skin, large Munsell blue eyes, and has rosy red blushed cheeks. She has black eyebrows, and chest-length chocolate brown hair. She wears an imperial red and cyan blue vertically striped sleeveless blouse that reveals a bit of her cleavage. The blouse also has two black buttons down the middle. She also wears a small propeller cap which bears the same pattern as the shirt. She wears a knee-length, knife-pleated, navy skirt, and brown sandals. She also has blue and red nail polish on her fingers and toes with match her blouse. In her right hand, she holds a large, red and golden yellow striped balloon. Unlike the others, she doesn't have joints on her body. The balloon holder was smaller than all of the other animatronics, being the same height as the blonde male. Following on from Balloon Girl is a tall, shadowy form of Bonnie. One could say it was a shadow Bonnie. She appears to be a silhouetted version of Toy Bonnie with traits taken from Bonnie. She has glowing white eyes and teeth. She doesn't have buck teeth like Bonbon, but rather human-like ones like Bonnie. She has white outlines on her face to mimic a mouth, eyebrows, and cheeks like the toy versions. She also has a white nose and bow tie, and also has white outlined joints on the body, arms, legs, and ears. She has evidence of hair that is shoulder length with 4 bangs at the front. Her ears are very long, longer than Bonnie's, and are capable of bending due to the joints in them. She also has paws, and a fluffy small rabbit tail. The next one was similar to the shadowy bunny, but it seemed to resemble Goldie in build, but was an extremely dark purple, bordering on shadow. This purple, shadow form of Goldie has glowing eyes and teeth. The bear was also female, and had black machine joints at various places. She has patterns on her stomach, snout, inner ears, paws, and inner thighs. She has black sclera, a white nose, and shoulder-length black hair. She has large oval ears that are able to move. She wears a black top hat and a bow tie, and is wielding a microphone with her right hand. She has black eyebrows, 3 white freckles on both sides of her muzzle, and a beauty spot under her right eye. She also has a large bear tail. The next one was the first incarnation of Freya. Freya Bear is a golden poppy-colored bear who had android joints on the body, arms, legs, and ears. The bear has darker golden patterns on her stomach, muzzle, inner ears, and paws. She wears a purple top hat and bow tie, and 2 black buttons on her stomach. She has blood-red eyes, a near square black nose, smaller brown pupils, round ears, and black eyebrows. She also has burnt umber brown hair that reaches her mid-back with 4 bangs at the front, 1 thick bang on the right, and 3 smaller ones on the left. She seems to be one of the tallest ones. Following on from Freya Bear is the backup singer of Fredbear's Family Diner from what Naruto could remember. This android is known as Spring Bonnie, and she is an early rendition of Bonnie. She is a dark goldenrod yellow rabbit animatronic with citrine yellow patches on her stomach and chest, muzzle, inner ears, underside of her tail, and on the toes of her paws. She is shorter than Freya Bear, and wears a single black button on her stomach, and she wears a bow tie. She has a fluffy tail, paws and long rabbit ears, with the right ear missing half of it. The joints are noticeable on the body, arms, legs, and ears. She also has black eyebrows, a black nose, and has tomato-orange eyes. She has black wavy hair that reaches her shoulders. The last female android seemed very strange in comparison to the others. Like Balloon Girl, this one was also very human-like. The she-being looked like a puppet in a strange sense. She has soft porcelain skin, with a messy mop of chin length, snow-white hair face and same-colored eyebrows. Her face is decorated with rosy red cheeks, purple stripes that stretch from the bottom of her eyes to her jawline, and red lipstick. Her eyes were exactly like Naruto's life eyes, having black sclera, with the pupil and iris glowing white. She wears a black and gray sleeveless, frilly, layered dress that reaches her thighs. Some of her cleavage is also seen, and the dress has 2 white buttons. She has bow tie attached to a necklace, and a large bow on her butt area. She is also quite tall. She also wears black pumps for shoes. She also wears arm warmers that acts like gloves, and thigh-long socks. Both having black and white stripes. Naruto's eyes widened in shock. Tears were tracing down his cheeks, his eyes were glistening with hope and worry. Hope that this wasn't some sick trick by the 5 girls near him. Hope that they held the souls of the people he knew that somehow lived on. He was worried though, would they even recognize him? It had been 9 years for most of them, and even longer for the others. His mind was racing as he was trying to figure out what to do. He was hurt, emotionally in pain and agony. He was fractured between hope and despair. Tentatively, he made his way slowly to the show stage, making his way past the 5 animatronics that brought him here. But just before he could get closer to the stage, the porcelain-skinned female appeared in front of Naruto before he could even blink. He was then lifted effortlessly into the air by the pale girl. Naruto was suddenly very nervous as she gazed at him, checking him, scrutinizing him. Her grip was tight, but yet so soft, making him feel as if she didn't want him to vanish, yet the soft touch felt as if she thought he was made from glass, and didn't want to break it. The marionette examined the blonde male closely, taking in all of his now grown-up features. He had truly grown up from when the two last saw each other. Before her death, before being pulled, ripped away from her Naruto. In her act of revenge for Konoha robbing her of a chance to be with the blonde, she somehow joined with the puppet of Fredbear's family diner, and killed the people who killed her. She also took the lives of many others in a fit of rage. When Motoyo and Seika were killed not long after her, she quickly gathered their souls and placed them in the Faya Bear and Spring Bonnie robots, by giving the animatronics life in the form of their souls. They were then left to rot in the building after it was shut down, due to their murders, for some time. Until one glorious day they were found by Mito and Fazbear, and taken to the building they're in now. Faya Bear and Spring were going to be fixed up, but were eventually left in the safe room, while the prize puppet was fixed up and placed with the new generation of animatronics. The other androids from Fredbear's were also brought here, but were left in the parts and service room. Rina, or the marionette, had seen Naruto come to this establishment and was completely ecstatic. But was saddened that he didn't seem to remember anything about her, Motoyo, and Seika. Hell, he didn't even know what Fredbear's was when she had brought it up during their whispery talks. She gave up trying to get him to remember, but tried to be his friend again in this new body during his time as an 8-year-old. She was jealous when he started talking about meeting other girls that he met here. She looked through the minds of the girls that the blonde had met here, and if she was honest, the girls impressed her. They weren't going to alienate him, they weren't going to use him for personal gain. The girls just wanted to be friends with him. Until she noticed that the girls eventually started falling for him. It didn't help when he got those plushies for the girls either. Then when he gave her a plushie of herself, that threw her through a loop, but she hugged the blonde, thanked him, and told him that she'd watch over him. Like she promised him when she was alive. And human. Still, she had fun as the prize puppet. She played games with the night guards here. She had made a friend in Jeremy Fitzgerald and later Fritz Smith. She had also made friends with Fazbear, another guy who was always on a phone, a purple-haired male who wore lots of purple, and a pink-haired male who wore pink. Then disaster struck. The girls that Naruto had made friends with here were killed. She had found the souls of the girls quickly, gave their souls presents, then like what she did with Motoyo and Seika, she gave the new girls new lives as the machines they loved. Kumori and Ine were a problem though, since they didn't have any other animatronics to place their souls into. So she used her powers to create shadow bodies for them, until new bodies were made. It became worse when Freya heard that Naruto had been killed. All sense went out the window at that point for all of them. The one they wanted was dead, killed, removed from their touch and love. Left to die alone, poor Rina couldn't go find his soul to give him new life. Rina and the others took out their anger on many staff members, parents, students, and shinobi that visited the place. Anyone who got in their way. The marionette was told by Yuko, aka Foxy, that she recalled seeing a man with purple hair, and another with pink hair killing them. Although she couldn't see their faces, due to them wearing mascot costumes, she saw their hair and eyes through the holes in the outfits. The puppet knew who Foxy was talking about and was shocked, appalled, and disturbed. Those two had killed the new girls? The 2-day guard workers? Why? What the heck would they gain from it? Too many questions and not enough answers made their anger and bitterness to the populace increase tenfold. If they couldn't be happy and be with the one they loved, why should anyone else? Their preconception for getting revenge on Konoha began, and upon the conception of their plan, they quickly gained a high kill count before the establishment was shut down. Rina was happy that Jeremy, Fritz, Fazbear, and Phone Guy was spared from their wrath-induced insanity. This place was shut down after Mangle bit someone on the head, and tore out their frontal lobe. Marionette had to wince at that. She was killed in a similar manner years before, although her human body was chomped on by Bear before Motoyo's soul was placed inside. When Mito came in one snowy day during the abandonment stage, the androids were happy to see her. Mito's presence had brightened up their isolation in this cold, dead place. The elderly Uzumaki repaired all of them, upgraded them with organic capabilities, and to make sure that the animatronics never sustained any more damages, she upgraded them with the Uzumaki clan's ultimate, and unfortunately the last, technological marvel. Nanotechnology. What got Rina though, being the most observant of the girls, was that Mito seemed to look at them in shock and awe sometimes. She didn't understand why the now passed away Uzumaki kept glancing at them with wonderment and a knowing smile. Almost like she knew something. She, the toys, and Bear were left here to remain alone in this abandoned, yet still functional restaurant. While Foxy, Bonnie, Goldie, Freya, Chica, and Spring were taken to a new building on the other side of Konoha. Clearly the girls that were taken to the newer establishment wanted revenge, as they kept killing the night guards for a total 5 years. Some guards they wasn't able to kill, one being the Phone Guy, who barely escaped with his life. Literally. The other was someone called Mike Schmidt, who lasted a whole month, right up until the place was closed down. For the last time, the girls hadn't gotten over Naruto's death, and were all still mourning and grieving. Even though some had buried it deeply within themselves to hide that pain from the others. So imagine when Goldie blinked into this establishment not long ago to tell her, the toys, Bear, and Spring, with the latter being in the safe room in the decaying Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, that Naruto was alive and well. Albeit, mentally broken and fractured. Naturally it didn't go down well with them, and Marionette was half tempted to remove Goldie from this plane of existence for even daring to bring up that pain once more. She, nor the others, didn't want to think those memories of their lost love. So Goldie went on to explain what she had heard the blonde say, while the male was trashing the dining area of the other pizzeria. That got the cogs churning in the minds of girls. Could Naruto have survived? When asked what the male looked like, the Golden Bear described the blonde to them, trying to get the others to make a connection, before telling them about his black and white eyes. That was when Marion butted in, saying that those eyes were known as the life eyes, and that only she and Naruto had those eyes. Rina and the girls had cried a bit then, mostly due to past pains being resurfaced, and partly due to them worrying about the upcoming reunion with Naruto. Knowing that they lived many years of hatred due to false information. Now it was time to correct those errors. If they could. So Rina wanted to see for that reason, because then, and only then, she would believe that the blonde was in fact Naruto Uzumaki, or what she nicknamed him, Ruto Maelstrom. Upon seeing him before her, hearing his cries, hearing him barely get his side of the story out through his emotional breakdowns. She knew it was him. Although she had to give credit where credit was due, Goldie's clever method of getting Naruto to recall his past to the known and unknown crowd that was viewing him was indeed a good way to put all the cards on the table straight away, and not lead to any roughness. Now here she was, right in front of him, holding him up in the air, gazing, examining, and exploring his handsome, emotional, and crestfallen features. She glided her delicate fingers from his temple to his chin, before stroking his cheek, and resting it in the palm of her hand. Tears of happiness leaked from her wide eyes as she gazed deeply into the eyes of the shinobi she was holding. She was originally going to use her unnatural powers to go through the blonde's noggin, and see everything that he's seen, understand everything he's been through. But she decided against that notion as quickly as it came up. She didn't want to violate his mind in such a way, it was callous of her to even attempt it. She didn't want to be that insensitive, never to her Ruto. Ruto, it's me. Spoke Marionette with a soft but strong voice. A voice that casted an echo. She leaned closer to the blonde's face, their breaths mixing together. His warm breath tickling her skin, and her oddly warm breathing connecting with his in a similar fashion. The voice sent shockwaves through Naruto's being, his breath was caught in his throat. He was shocked, that voice was hers, the voice that belonged to Rina. His life eyes faded away, returning to the natural blue eyes the blonde male has. His first friend. She was still alive. He didn't understand it, he didn't understand how the girls managed to transcend death, overcome it, and still live on this plane of existence. Rina? Is that you? Naruto questions, as he trembles in her grasp. He shivers at her breath tickling his lips, and she seemed to lean closer to him. His eyes widen, and he tries to lean back, but couldn't when the Rina-possessed android stroked his cheek again, causing him to shiver with mixed emotions. Their eyes locked on each other's. Naruto felt his stomach tighten with nervousness. A deafening silence seemed to suddenly exist in the room, all because of an unsurprising, but still joyous event. Marian's lips had finally connected with Naruto's. Rina was finally kissing Naruto. She wrapped her arms around him delicately, but still had a sense of firmness to the grip she had. She kissed him tenderly and passionately, pouring all the pent-up feelings she held for the blonde into the long-awaited kiss. Naruto had completely froze the second her lips connected with his. The feeling in his stomach had gotten worse, the butterflies were really moving as it were. His heart was racing at incredible speeds, it felt like it was moving at about 2,000 miles per hour. He didn't even try to break out of her grasp, but eventually sunk into the kiss. He did gasp though when he felt her tongue touch his bottom lip teasingly. That was all the prize puppet needed. Her tongue quickly breached the barrier of his lips and explored Naruto's mouth wildly. Naruto used his tongue to fight off the aggressor, he wasn't backing down without a fight. Even if it was a kiss, he wasn't going to lose the battle. His competitive nature came out in full force. Rina responded to his attacking tongue with her own, and slowly, but surely, defeated him, and explored his mouth when his tongue stopped attacking. She eventually stopped, and pulled back from the kiss. A lone trail of saliva connecting her blue tongue to his pink one was all that remained from their passionate moment. Rina smirked with her eyes narrowing into a half-lidded gaze. She looked at his very red face, no doubt it was caused from the kiss and her close proximity to him. She could tell he was nervous, and that made it cute in a strange way. He was still so cute and nervous at the age he was now. It was amusing. The clearing of a throat shook her from her reverie. She looked up and saw the animatronics from the other location looking at her with annoyance and frowns. If there was any indication as to who loudly and rudely cleared their throat, the closed fist in front of the mouth of Bonnie was the only clue the puppet needed. She chuckled nervously at the girls before her, before she heard yet another throat being cleared behind her. Upon turning her head to see the source of the second noise, she quickly saw that the girls that were on the stage with her had now moved. Right behind her, barely 2 meters from her. And all of them were looking at her with similar expressions to the other girls. Marionette let out a very uneasy laugh as she set Naruto down onto his own 2 feet again. She noticed that he wobbled a bit. She also heard him take a deep gasp of air. She smirked deviously. She had taken his breath away. The other girls looked at Marion for a few moments, before looking at the still red-faced Naruto. The blonde in question looked around the other girls taking in their emotional gazes at him. The emotions that the eyes of the girls held were along the lines of wonderment, lust, and love. Naruto shivered at the lust, but it wasn't a negative shiver. No, it was anticipation. Or was it wonder? Naruto couldn't tell at the moment. Without warning, Rina was pushed aside by Bear, who then cupped the blonde male's cheeks, before kissing him with passion and desire. She quickly forced her tongue into his mouth to explore it hungrily. The blonde hero fought back, but lost to the intensity of Motoyo's wild tongue. The Motoyo-controlled Bear pulled away from the kiss, and walked away with a strut. Naruto wasn't given a rest though, as Bonbon quickly planted her lips on his, and kissed him the same way as Bear. When she finished her wild French kiss, the other girls took turns, not giving the poor blonde a chance. When the last girl, Goldie, finished her tongue kiss with the blonde and pulled away, Naruto had sputtered and coughed, trying to get air into his lungs. Which at this point had been needing serious air, and he needed to cool down, as his face was blazing hot and glowing red from the experience. Getting mouth-raped by 13 robotic girls and 2 ghost girls was not something he thought of. Getting mouth-raped by 13 robotic girls and 2 ghosts with the souls of his friends residing in each of them was something else. The poor blonde was in shock. He stuttered as he tried to figure out what happened. He tried to compose himself, to try and keep himself up through the stress of the night so far. He failed. He passed out once again, and like before, he was prevented from falling to the ground. Only this time it was Goldie and the puppet who caught him. I hope he doesn't make this a habit. As much as I like him in my arms, I want him to be awake. Goldie commented with a small giggle as she shook her head at the antics of Naruto. Marion wholeheartedly agreed with the golden bear, as she told the other girls to get cushions and pillows, along with a mattress and sheets. They didn't have a proper bed here, but it would suffice for the time being. Rina looked at the blonde with an adoring smile, but the smile had a hint of dolefulness. Konoha, abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza main area, Thursday. A number of hours passed since Naruto fell asleep in the arms of Goldie and Marionette, and the events that happened that night. The other girls had gotten what Rina told them to get, and plonked them on the stage. The mattress was nearly covered with the multicolored pillows, cushions, sheets, and blankets. It looked like a rainbow that became one with the ground, or a strange take on the scene of the Paint River from the Pagemaster. Now laying upon the construction of the Lake of Pillows, was the sleeping Naruto, who was safely nested into the bed. He was faintly snoring under the cozy blankets. After putting Naruto into the bed, the android girls from here had gone through his bag, to read through the books that the other animatronics had read at the other location. While the girls at the last location started reading the books that were written by the first, second, and fourth. Upon finishing reading through the black books of the third and fifth Hokages, the girls who hadn't read the books beforehand, and only got the gist of what they contained from Goldie when she teleported here first, had a storm of emotions and feelings rushing through their bodies. Rage, anger, contempt, loathing, disgust, fury, resentfulness. That was the tip of the iceberg when regarding the vehement negative feelings they were all generating. They were appalled, nauseated even, when reading the contents of the plan they had unknowingly affected due to them being friends with Naruto. It was disgusting. The audacity of those bigots. Freya was right when she suggested getting Naruto out of Konoha along with them to live someplace else. The problem with that idea was an important one. Even if they could get out of Konoha, and out of the Land of Fire, one question still remained. Where would they go? Silence was the answer to that question. Rina brought something up to the girls concerning what happened earlier. The part where all of the girls took turns to exchange saliva with the poor human blonde. Something she wasn't too happy with. She wanted Naruto all to herself, damn it, and clearly that wasn't going to happen with all these other girls involved too. The girls bickered for some time because of that. All of the girls wanted Naruto to be theirs, but they didn't know where Naruto stood in all of this. It was clear that the hero of Konoha loved all of them, but didn't know how to act on it. The girls didn't know what to do also, and kept arguing for an hour, until Ine came up with a solution to their problem. One that she remembered from Mito Uzumaki when she was repairing the machines here. Mito had wrote it in a book at one point, and Shadow Bonnie had kept looking over the former wife of the first shoulder to see. She noticed that Mito made a reference to a clan act, where if the male or female was the last of their clan, they can have multiple lovers to rebuild the clan. We can share him, was her answer to the quarrel, and it definitely got the girls' attention. When asked whatever gave her that idea, she elaborated on what she saw Mito write down all those years ago. Sharing him, that was a strange idea. Could they even do that? They all knew each other very well, and they knew that they wouldn't find anyone like Naruto anywhere else. Nor did that want to lose their Naruto. There was one hiccup with that plan though. Would Naruto even agree to be with all of them? Silence greeted that question also. Now the furry robotic girls were situated around a table, with only the 2 chickens missing from a verbal exchange that was going on between the animatronics. There was a light kerfuffle emanating from behind a door that had "kitchen" written on it. The noise sounded like pots and pans being knocked. There was also a delicious smell of pizza flooding through the air. A smell that disturbed the sleeping blonde, who woke up, and glanced around with uncertain facial features before they widened slightly. He remembered where he was now. He also remembered what happened last night. The venting of anger, the confessions, meeting robotic females with the souls of his dead friends, being teleported to this location and recalling all the times he had here with other friends. then meeting those friends again who now resided in furry machine bodies like the other ones. Oh yeah, there was also getting his mouth explored by all of them in bursts of lust and fiery passion. That made him blush scarlet red once more. Until he heard the sounds of multiple people talking, he tried to listen to the conversations going on. Until his stomach rumbled loudly. The conversation stopped, and an uneasy silence suddenly existed in the room, even with the noises coming from the kitchen. Naruto unenthusiastically sat up in the bed, before he stretched in an adorable manner. Well, the girls watching thought it was cute and adorable. That was evident by their giggles. The blonde pouted, before climbing out of the makeshift bed with drowsy features. Naruto stood up on the stage, cracked his back, and tried to shake off effects of sleep. He then discovered something odd about his body. Well, the lacking of something on his body. He looked down to see that he was only wearing his tight black and orange boxers. The underwear left little to the imagination as well. The girls, even Chika and Toichika, who had popped their heads around the corner of the threshold to the kitchen, were taking in the form of the near-naked male specimen before them. The fact that he was on stage made them feel like he was showing off his athletic-built body to an audience. In this case the audience was them, and by heck they were loving the view. He was handsome, and by looking down below, the girls could easily guess he was also well equipped. The girls ogled at him as he swiftly covered his lower body with a blanket from the bed. The poor blonde felt like he was a piece of meat hung up on display to a hungry crowd. He never felt so nervous, nor did he ever expect anyone to look at him with such desire, never mind 15 people examining him in such a way. He wanted to hide under the blanket, but he desperately wanted something to eat. But he needed to do his morning hygiene ritual. I'm going to go and, freshen up, he explained as he went to grab his backpack which held all of the items necessary. The girls nodded in response. They didn't need to tell him since he knew where it was already. Plus he didn't need to worry about foul water since the water and electrical systems were still working, and all of them were in pristine condition due to the Uzumaki's brilliant engineering, plumbing, construction, and etc. That, and the puppet's powers were keeping everything in check as well. The anthropomorphic animatronics kept their eyes on the human male as he made his way through the doors at the far end, and watched him as he went through the doorway. They continued stalking him until the doors Naruto opened to pass through, closed, preventing the girls from seeing him further. The girls quickly started nattering between each other regarding the spectacle they just saw. They tried to think innocent thoughts, but their train of thoughts quickly became perverted in. Even the lady of the group, Freya, couldn't contain her lewd thoughts of the blonde. It didn't help when Foxy kept continuing their naughty trains of thought, and bringing up new naughty ideas for what they could do. She wasn't helping them pull the lid back on their perverted thoughts. This continued for about 40 minutes, and the neon red blushes, and traces of drool on some of the females around the table and in the doorway told the story about what they were all thinking. The chickens eventually went back into the kitchen to continue making the pizzas. A door opening shook them from their silence, and the object of their thoughts strolled over to them. He held a nervous disposition like before, but now looked tidy and fresh. His hair still was slightly damp. No doubt he used the shower system the girls built overnight, and clearly the ablution he had was refreshing. He was wearing similar clothing to what he wore before, with him only missing the haori he got from the toads. The bedsheet that was wrapped around his waist before was now draped over his arm. He walked over to them quickly, but quietly at the same time, his feet not even making a sound when connecting with the ground. As he walks by the show stage, he plonks the sheet with the others. Your clothing is being washed and repaired at the moment. Feybear tells him, as she notices him trying to find his other clothes with a quizzical frown. He looks at her and smiles, before giving a nod. Thank you, I guess. Come now, Naru, you must sit with us and eat. You're starving, Bonbon told and reminded the teen, who rubbed his stomach when it rumbled again. It might as well have answered for him. Naruto quickly composed himself, and made his way to the long table. He sat down where he presumed the last free seat was, while 2 other chairs were free. On the table in front of those empty places were the cupcakes that both Chikas carried with them. So the blonde hero sat between Rina and Rei, and was facing Aika, Ane, and Seika. He still seemed apprehensive, and that made the girls frown slightly. He didn't need to be worried or tense around them. Ruto, you don't need to be worried, alright? Bear reassured from the end of the table with a smile that helped emphasize it. Naruto didn't need to fret in their presence. He had nothing to worry about. It's just strange, you know? I mean, I know you died, Hiruzen wrote it down. It's even written down in the village records that you all went missing, presumed dead. Only yesterday I find that you're indeed alive, in a strange way. Naruto confessed as he looked along each of them. He was gesturing with his hands along the way, before sighing in relief, then frowning. I don't know what to do, actually, since I confessed my feelings to you all. He chuckled while cutely scratching his whiskered cheek. I don't know what you think about that, so I'm worried about that at the moment. I mean, it's unlikely that you'd all share, right? The girls looked at each other's subtlety with mischievous little smirks. Naruto saw the smirks and looks, and felt a shiver go along his spine, most likely due to a phantom response by whatever these furry robotic girls were thinking. Then Naruto's brain needed a system reboot when Rina spoke. Actually, thanks to information provided by Ine, we can all be with you. When you fell asleep, we all bickered for an hour regarding our love for you, who should be with you, who loved you more, the lot. The quarrel nearly became a brawl because none of us wanted to let you go, again. We all love you, and we didn't want to lose our bond between each other. That was until Ine told us about the Clan Restoration Act. The open ending to the reply easily told Naruto what the rest of it was. He knew all about the CRA, it wasn't as if he skimmed through that when he was reading on the clans of village. He knew that the Uzumaki and Namikaze clans were on their last legs, literally and figuratively speaking. Both clans were nearly extinct, with unknown numbers for the pair of them. The idea that was thrown at him, however, has an answer to him picking a girl to be with him. It's unlikely that he'd get with anyone else. He also couldn't pick between any of the girls around the table and in the kitchen. He loved all of them. No doubt the whole experience would be amazing, but stressful. He knew this would be an oxymoron experience. But in truth, he didn't care. He loved all of the girls, yet didn't want to hurt any of them. That's why he didn't want to pursue a relationship with them when they were human. Now they were giving him the chance to be with all of them, dating them all at the same time. One large, loving family. By the end of his thoughts, his face was red from embarrassment, and if he was honest, he was also red from the numerous lewd thoughts he was having. Damn it, Jiraiya had a greater effect on him than he thought. But he knew his answer. Why, you all want to share me? Naruto stuttered out with a cough. He was still trying to process what the girls were suggesting. The girls around him nodded, and also confirmed it for Chiko and Tomoko. The girls then waited for what felt like an eternity, as they saw the blonde think about the possibility of being with them. He was clearly racking his brain to think things through. His eyes were shut, his breathing had slowed as he was contemplating the way to do this, and how he would go about dating so many females. In truth, Naruto knew his answer, he was just waiting a bit for a more dramatic effect. Rina was gazing at Naruto, just like the other furry androids were, but she knew something the others didn't. Well, Goldie might know, since the two were alike in power scales and abilities. Although the two did have differences, Marion knew that the hero was purposely biding his time, making the tension almost unbearable for them. And it was working. Devious blonde. Said blonde looked up at the girls again with a large smile, and with some tears starting to form in the corner of his eyes. The smile was beaming and infectious. He looked at the girls with determination, and told them his answer. I would love to date all of you, although, we have to learn about each other, again. I'll be honest, I don't know much about relationships like this, or even a normal relationship, you know. But I will do my best. I love each and every one of you. He tells them sincerely, before the sound of doors opening, and the waft of pizza smell flooded from the threshold of the open kitchen and into the main area. The two chickens rolled out trolleys with trays of pizza on the top and on the shelves inside it. The chefs hummed out a little tune as they placed pizza in front of everyone's seats, before taking their own places at the table with the others. Naruto glanced at the pizza everyone had around him, taking in the various toppings and flavorings. His pizza before him is what he remembers as his favorite when he was here all those years ago. It was plain in comparison to the others, with his only having cheese and sauce on it, and no other toppings. Upon seeing the others digging into their breakfast, Naruto dug into his pizza. During the mass eating, the group was chatting, with the girls mostly asking Naruto the questions, and getting to know him more. He told them about what he was doing since having his memory wiped when he was 8. He began by explaining about his time during the academy years, having to deal with the abuse of power the teachers had, how they didn't seem to want him to learn, and how they sabotaged his education in all fields. Almost like they wanted him to die either in the village, or out in the world, due to him not being able to defend himself properly. The only one teaching him correctly was Kakashi, who told him to hide his skills, something that Jiraiya would later tell Naruto to do. Naruto would then continue with his tale by jumping to him killing Mizuki, the formation of Team 7 where he was with his secret friends, the mission to Wave where he would change his view on why he wants to become stronger, because of the lives of Haku and Zabuza. He then explained how he was a hero to the land of waves, before he started talking about the Chunin exams, his battles against Orochimaru, Kiba, Neji, before having to fight to save the village from Sound and a Shukaku-controlled Gaara during the snake's attack on Konoha. He talked about meeting Jiraiya once again, who ended up training him during the waiting period of the exams, and took him out of Konoha to find Tsunade, so that they could get her to be the next Hokage, after Hiruzen's death. He would then explain how he fought Kabuto and Orochimaru again after the whole event with Tsunade, having a scrap with her, in which he deflated her ego, and tried to get her to return to Konoha to take up the mantle of Hokage. He succeeded in bringing the old hag, and her assistant, back to Konoha, where she took up the role of Hokage, healed Rock Lee, and fixed up other people who had been damaged by the exams and subsequent battle. He then talked about his travels to various lands around the planet, such as him going to the land of snow. He then talked about the battle with the Sound 5 upon getting back to Konoha, because Sasuke up and left. After failing to stop Sasuke, Naruto returned to Konoha, went on a few more adventures, such as dealing with the Stone of Gelel, going to the land of the moon, and aiding the village hidden in the stars. He then left with Jiraiya to go training across the world. Those 3 years of training was absolute hell. Naruto, under the tutelage of his godfather, made leaps in his intelligence, taijutsu, and ninjutsu. While the blonde couldn't use genjutsu, he could counter most forms of it easily. He also trained with his multi-metal release, white fire release, and ice release. He also improved his stamina, chakra levels, and began using sealing techniques. Naruto also spent time trying to harness the power of the nine-tailed fox within him, with some success. The sum being that Naruto can control 3 tails worth of that power, but going any higher, he loses control of it. On the way back from the intense training, Naruto was told to hide the majority of his abilities, since Jiraiya knew that village would be upset if their weapon got too powerful to escape their leash. Just as he got back, Naruto left to save Gaara from the Akatsuki. The blonde had to explain to the girls who they were and what they were after. He continued by explaining how he saved Gaara, returned home, and went out to the land of demons to protect Priestess Shien and helped her defeat a demon known as Morio. He then talked about the battles against the Land of the Sky, Shino and the Zero Tails, before talking about his battle against Hiriko. He also recalled other minor adventures. He recalled his battles against the Akatsuki, and killing Kakuzu with his new wind style, Rasen Shuriken, before he went to find again Sasuke, only to be stopped by Tobi. He also told them about how he killed Kisame in a deadly match. Upon killing the tailed beast, Naruto took Samahata for himself. He then talked about the time he was in the Hazuka Castle Containment Facility, better known as Blood Prison. During this time he was training in the sage arts of the Toad Sages, only for it to be interrupted when he was placed in prison. He found out that it was all a ploy to stop the box of Ultimate Bliss and Satori. To which he did stop it. He glossed over 2 segments, one where he was sent into the past to Rorin to stop Mukade. The second one was where he was pulled into a limited Tsukuyomi world by Tobi, where everyone was radically different, and he was a villain. Upon returning to this world, he found out that Jiraiya had died, sending him into deep depression. He returned to Mount Myoboku to expand on his sage training. He then concluded his tale by telling them about the recent invasion of Konoha by the leader of the Akatsuki, Nagato Uzumaki. He explained how he returned to the village and battled the Rinnegan wielder, explaining how he had perfected Sage Mode, and went toe-to-toe with the 6 Paths of Pain, defeating 5 of them quickly, before struggling with the last path. The Diva Path of Pain was a dangerous adversary, and Naruto thought he would die by his hands through the magnitude of powers the enemy was throwing out, the most stressing one being the planetary devastation. Naruto had to explain that he lost control during the fight and was close to unleashing the nine-tailed fox, until his father stepped in and stopped him. After finishing his talks with his dad, and his seal being repaired, Naruto fought Nagato's Path of Pain one last time, defeated it, and went to find Nagato Uzumaki. Upon finding him, they talked and debated, until Naruto turned Nagato back to the light once more. The blonde healed him as Nagato brought everyone he killed back to live. After doing so, he told them to run, before any Konoha ninja arrive. The possessed girls around him looked on in awe, fascination, fear, shock, and surprise at his story. They expected something along the lines of him going on small adventures, battling strong ninja, and being a badass. Not him killing people, rescuing princesses, liberating entire lands, battling demons, traveling through time and exploring other timelines, battling insanely strong ninja, and being a super badass. But what worried them most was this group that was after him. While Naruto had killed or defeated many of their members, some were still active, and maybe even more powerful than Nagato. Naruto confirmed their fears by saying that his fellow Uzumaki wasn't the true leader, someone else was. A man known as Madara Uchiha. Or at least claiming to be him. Still, the name itself was a cause to be cautious, as the man was a legend in the world of shinobi. Not to one nation, but to all nations. Even if the person wasn't as strong, the person was still playing a gambit with that name. Not many people would think twice about retreating from fighting him. Ruto? Came the voice of Seika-controlled Spring Bonnie. She looked at him with inquiring eyes. Raising a brow at the golden bunny, he finished chewing the bit of pizza in his mouth, before replying to her. Is something the matter, Seika? In the black books, the third and fifth make comments about you. They make short statements about you letting on more than you know, acting differently then suddenly returning to their perception of the normal you. They also make remarks about you always thinking, plotting something. They attempted to get Inoichi to look through your mind, only to be blocked by something. Naruto's posture suddenly became more serious, he seemed steadier and battle-ready. His face was strangely calm, even with the serious eyes and small smirk. Oh that, well, he started calmly, with an undercurrent of bliss. That is a long, but interesting answer. The girls were curious as to the sudden change, it was almost like a 180. His demeanor seemed so serious in comparison to what they just saw. His eyes also seemed dull, but what threw them off was the smirk he was throwing at them. It wasn't a cocky smirk, it wasn't arrogance, but rather a strange mixture of a calm, plotting smirk. So this was the person beneath the prankster. I've always wanted to leave this village. That is the truth. I have planned this for a number of years. I've gotten a few people involved with this as well. Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura to name a few. The girls around him looked at him with surprised, startled, but relieved expressions. They were curious to know more though, and they voiced it. Naruto smiles at them with a foxy grin, before telling them more regarding the conception of the plan. I created the plan when I was 9. I knew why the residents of this hellhole hated me. I know that they spit on the sacrifices made by heroes, and in some cases, they force the person making the sacrifice to commit suicide. That is the case of Kakashi's father, who rather than proceeding with a mission, abandoned it to save his comrades. Tsukumo would later kill himself because of how the Land of Fire was treating him for choosing to save his friends. Kakashi was the first person I confronted about the idea of leaving Konoha. At first he wholeheartedly disagreed with the idea of leaving Konoha. But then I provided him with evidence to show why the Land of Fire didn't deserve his loyalty. I used the evidence of his father, the way the village treat me, and how they responded to the Uchiha clan when the clan was planning a coup d'état. Instead of trying for a peaceful solution, they had all of them wiped out. I named a few others, but those 3 were by far more effective. Explained the smiling blonde, before eating some more pizza. How did he come across all of that, matey? Questioned Foxy, as her eyes shone with a knowing look. I bet me booty that he be stealing treasure. The blonde male chuckled with mirth as he finished another slice of his cheese pizza. Simple really. The story of Tsukumo was mentioned in the academy and in the library. But for the truth behind the Uchiha massacre, I went to the Hokage's office one day to see that nobody was inside. I used my sensing abilities to see if anyone was hiding. Nobody was there, but oh dear me, here is and left everything regarding the event on the desk. I read through what I could, before I was forced to borrow them due to someone making their way to the room I was in, I quickly grabbed all of the papers, and used the body flicker technique to leave. The documents I took would be beneficial in getting Sasuke to cement his idea of leaving Konoha also, although both of our plans eventually merged together. How did you get away with taking all of those? Surely the receptionist would have spotted you. Franny pondered out loud, as she analyzed what Naruto had told them, and didn't understand how the handsome blonde got away with it. Who said I went in as myself? Naruto replied with a small, sinister smirk. Quote ellipsis. You used the transformation technique, didn't you? Goldie realized, before stating it as she gazed at him with wonder. The wonder being directed to his sinister smirk. It held mischief in it too. A dark mischief. Naruto nodded, and glanced at her with a smile, happy that she guessed right, before looking forward again. I had mimicked the look of someone who had attacked me a few days prior to that. I kept his appearance in my mind, and used it to get around. The daft walnut of a Jonin was publicly executed not even a day later. How did you feel afterwards? Rina wondered, as she kept her eyes locked on Naruto's face. She wasn't happy that he was attacked by people in the streets. The savages. She was happy that the person was killed though, with some cunning plotting from Naruto to frame him. I felt like karma was actually working for a change. Anyway, continuing on from the plan, after getting Sasuke and Sakura in on the plan, the four of us had to cover our tracks and plans, so we made fake personas. It wasn't until the Chunin exams when the plan was altered, since Sasuke was planning on learning from Orochimaru. I initially didn't like the idea, but he eventually convinced me that for our plan to work better, it needed two fronts. I would work one, he would work the other. We would both gather people to join our cause. The lands that I liberated, or helped, aren't entirely thankful for Konoha. They were thankful for me spearheading their freedom or aid. Sasuke was going to do something similar with the Land of Sound. Eventually, Sasuke left Konoha to join the snake user in the Sound Village, to become stronger. The girls watched Naruto as he took another bite out of his pizza slice. The girls were impressed. Clearly a great deal of thought went into this plan, and it turned out to be flexible when the situation called for it. The only problem was a location for the village. Ryoko voiced this to the blonde with worry. For a while, we didn't know where we wanted to build this village. We wanted it to be someplace off of the mainland, but someplace close to it. We also needed the land to have a vast amount of resources. Since I haven't heard from Sasuke regarding the location, I took it upon myself to find it, and I may have found a place. He glanced at the Uzumaki clan crest on the wall to his left, next to the kitchen. Freya looked at it, and wondered for a moment, before she realized what he was suggesting. The clue was the symbol, so from there she knew it had something to do with the now near-extinct clan. Her eyes widened slightly, before she smiled, and tipped her hat to him in appreciation. You're going to bring back the land of whirlpools, she said in the form of a statement, not a question. That's perfect, it is your birthright after all, and it is your homeland. But also, we know portions of the land, as the android brains contain information regarding the layout of Whirlpool. Your idea of restoring that land to its former glory is going to be marvelous. If I wore a top hat, I'd tip it to you for the praise. The blonde human male told her with foxy smile, utter truth, and mirth in his eyes. He would tip his hat to the lady figure of the group, for both her praising and her supporting of the idea. His smile turned into a slight frown as he glanced around the table. I know the nation would have to be more autonomous in comparison to the other nations, since we'd be out in the drink as it were, but I only know of a few lands close to the land of whirlpools, and one of them I don't want anything to do with. That one being the land of fire. He looked at the Spring Bonnie robot with wonder for some time, causing Spring to fidget under his gaze. While it wasn't a negative wonder, it was mostly curiosity and remembrance. The other girls noticed too. Eventually the Seika-possessed golden rabbit asked Naruto a question, an obvious question at that. Naruto, why are you gazing at me like that? She muttered out shyly, still fidgeting under his wondering eyes. His gorgeous blue eyes. She didn't mind it to some extent, but it was making her wonder why. Is there still a spare Spring Bonnie suit? That stopped all the girls' trains of thought. That was a strange and disturbing question. Why would he want to know where that suit was? That suit was very dangerous. It was like the Spring Bonnie android among them, but had the endoskeletons and support structures removed. That spare suit, and the spare Feybear suit, were created to be a hybrid between an animatronic and a wearable mascot costume. The spare Freya Bear suit would later become Golden Freya. But that spare spring Bonnie suit was a death trap. The mechanical parts inside of that suit were designed to be tightly compressed against the outside of the suit, using spring locks to hold them in place, allowing someone to enter and wear the suit. However, anyone in the suit would need to be very cautious because, in the event that the spring locks malfunctioned, all the compressed animatronic parts would quickly snap back into place, severely injuring, or likely killing, whoever was inside the suit. That suit would later be nicknamed Springtrap by the girls, and even Phone Guy would later call it that as well in some of his hidden recordings. Why do you want to know that? The purple Freya, Goldie lookalike stuttered out with worry. She had a horrible thought going through her mind. Naruto wasn't wanting to go into that thing, was he? She didn't want him going through that just for him to become one of them. Heck, she personally didn't want him to be an animatronic, and she guessed the others didn't want that also. Naruto looked at her with calm eyes, and a foxy smirk, before that smirk slowly became malicious and cruel. It made a shiver run down her ghostly spine, but the next words put a cold chill down all of their spines. Not a shiver of coldness, no, a shiver of fear and phantom worry. I plan on dressing someone up in that suit. It will have metaphorical implications for that person. Rina looked at her long-lost crush with worry and surprise. He was dark, he had gotten really dark. Clearly he was wanting revenge against this village for their crimes against him, his clan, and them. The girls were looking at Naruto for a bit with mixed emotions, before Foxy grinned devilishly, something that the blonde mirrored. Eventually the group started chatting again and finished up the remaining slices of pizza. It was exquisite according to the human male, causing the two chickens to blush at his praising of their cooking prowess. After chilling for an hour and catching up, Naruto asked the girls a question, and he showed it was either an embarrassing question or an unsure one, judging by his sheepish expression. Not to be a bother or anything, but could you help me hone my skills once again, and help me refine my social skills, please? Yuko, Maiko, Rei, Hitomi, Chiko, Ryoko, Aika, Ko, Tomoko, Sachiko, Ane, Komori, Rina, Motoyo, and Seika all look at Naruto with curious eyes. He was asking for their help still, what for? Judging by his stories, he was very powerful, smart, and resourceful. So why was he asking them to help him? Why? Rina asked for them. She was the most curious, like what was going through the minds of the others. She wondered why he wanted them to teach and train him. Wasn't the shoe on the other foot now? No, while he could no doubt train them, he wanted their help. They saw him sigh, as he got up from the chair and walked to the show stage, looking at the bed he slept in. Some of the girls had to swivel around in their seats to keep their eyes locked on him. Because, he started with a somber tone, as he looked over at them over his shoulder. I still feel weak. My mind is a mess, and I don't feel I'm ready to go out and start my plan. But most importantly of all, I want to be stronger, so I can protect you, all of you. I already failed you once. Bonnie, Goldie, Freya, Chica, Mangle Balloon Girl, Shade, Rika, and Freya Bear looked at him with frowns and worried eyes. While the other girls, minus Foxy, looked at him sadly and with depressed eyes. Naruto clearly still thought that their deaths were his fault. It's more than likely he'll keep that in his mind for some years to come. Foxy slammed her hand on the table, jolting everyone. She couldn't take Naruto beating himself up again. Naru, laddie, she shouted, causing him to turn around and face her with wide eyes and an unhinged jaw, clearly surprised at Foxy's outburst. Yuko continued with a serious expression, but her voice softened somewhat. Naru, tease wasn't er fault we got sent to Davy Jones' locker. Ye need ta stop, matey. 'Twas that fucking scurvy dog, Hiruzen. As fair the learnin', we gunna to teach ye, right lasses? Freya nodded agreeing with the dear fox's words, while tutting at the swearing. You did not have us killed, Naru, you silly gentleman. But do not fret, we will put you through the ringer. Due in no small part to Marion's ability. Rina saw the confused frown on the blonde's facial features, and as she was getting up out of her chair, she told him. I have an ability that allows me to bend time as it were, but it only works in a sealed area, like this building for example. I'll explain how it works. Using my power, 3 years or so can pass in this zone, while outside the building, Only a month would have passed, give or take a day or two. Your body will also not age as well, strangely, I don't know how though, since when I've done it, my body didn't decay or break down like it was supposed to. Anyway, it takes a lot out me, but with Goldie's immense reserves and yours, I will last for a long time, and I will be able to teach you too. She finished with an inkling of a flirty grin. The blonde male beamed a large smile a smile filled with determination and excitement. A fire seemed to burn brightly in his eyes too. He smacked his fist into his hand. I'm ready. The other girls eyed up the very warmed-up male, and eyed up the puppet as well. The marionette also gave a smile filled with exhilaration. She was happy that the enthusiasm she remembered was still in there, and blooming well. Follow me then, my maelstrom. It had been over a month since Naruto rediscovered Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and it was the best experience of his whole life. For Naruto though, it had been 3 years, due to the unique powers of Marion. The blonde had been put through the ringer as it were. Those 3 years of training and refining his skills was an absolute hell for him. The girls had worked the Kyuubi container into the ground during the early years, since he wasn't prepared for the hell that was called training. While he did still suffer from heavy exhaustion during the last year of his intense physical activity, he didn't pass out. He continued where he left off in terms of his bloodlines and nature types after his training trip with Jiraiya, and getting them to the highest level he could achieve with the aid of the animatronic girlfriends, his shadow clones, and with the help of 2 great sage toads, Fukasaku and Shima. After the 2 toad sages picked up Naruto's sage mode activate and went to investigate. Imagine how the girls reacted to seeing them appear in the establishment, going through the barrier the marionette had put up. The puppet wasn't too impressed and demanded how the 2 toads were able to go through the barrier she put up. Fukasaku and Shima were surprised to see who was speaking, but were startled at seeing that the android containing a soul and stated as such, shocking the girls and Naruto. After a lengthy conversation, explaining the current situation with Naruto discovering what Konoha had done to him purposely, the lies and treachery bestowed upon an unsuspecting him by a vindictive, callous village and its leadership. The toads didn't believe him at first, that was until the girls got them to read the black books that Naruto had took and copied, after the victory of him defeating Pain and during him training with the robotic females respectfully. The toads' reactions to the hard evidence before them was frightening to Naruto, since while they were serious and calm, with Fukasaku being the former, and Shima the latter. Upon reading the books of the 3rd and 5th Hokages, the 2 held facial expressions that Naruto wouldn't be able to get out of his mind for months. The 2 decided then and there that they were going to aid in Naruto's 3-year torture training. The 2 then brought along Geritora, who then proceeded to give Naruto the key to the 8 trigram seal, by entering the blonde's belly through his mouth, and with the helping hand of Fukasaku, was able to complete his task. Naruto battled his dark half, united with it, and then battled Kurama, in order to prove his worth to the mighty demon. After an intense battle with Kyuubi, the blonde warrior defeated her, using all the powers at his disposal. Afterwards he gained a new form, a chakra cloak, which was all him, but was stabilized by Kurama for the time being, until he could properly control it. This power-up was incredible, and upon showing the Toad Sages, and the Animatronics, they were all flabbergasted and in awe. This form increased Naruto's power and powers many times over, and even augmented his bloodlines and nature types by a similar amount. So the girls and the sages trained Naruto into the ground, got him to enhance his abilities in all areas. They didn't pull any punches, and would make the blonde work tirelessly in his training regime until his bones broke and was able to perform jutsus in his sleep. It was utter hell, but it was worth it. Naruto liked the hell on earth style of training, to make him feel as if he earned the right to use those powers and skills. With the help of Freya and the more civilized and refined members of the big family, Naruto's manners and social skills improved by leaps and bounds, much like his training. He was more of a gentleman now, when the situation called for it. During his intense training, Naruto looked through the safe rooms of both the undamaged and rundown locations, and found some very interesting things. Apart from finding Springtrap in the rundown place, the blonde also found the journals and scrolls of Mito Uzumaki within the undamaged establishment. Within the documents contained her life's work, the blueprints and layouts of the androids, and the locations of everything important within the land of whirlpools. Within a blood-locked box, Naruto found something that blew his mind, the last technological marvel of the Uzumaki clan, the nanosphere. The nanosphere could take any shape, and could be put into specialized equipment to take the unreal technology to new levels. It was used to keep the building intact, but was also used on the animatronics. During Mito's notes, she found a way to implant nanotech into the body of people, but wasn't able to perform it, due to her own death. She had written down how to perform the operation, and what was needed. Naruto didn't wait, and quickly got the gang to help him execute this operation successfully. It was the single most physically painful time of his life. It felt like an age, whereas it only took 10 minutes. After waking up again from the experience, he could easily feel and tell the differences. All of his senses were increased, his body and organs were much tougher and regenerated faster, and his mind and cognitive functions exceeded known human measures. It was incredible. Naruto had also met with counterparts from other universes and timelines. But that's a whole other story in itself. He had met much stronger versions of himself, all of which were from timelines ahead of his by years and more. One of them was on a totally different planet. One was exploring their universe in a spaceship and was now on their way to stop an alien race from destroying a planet called Earth. And the one that gathered them still lived on this planet, but he was something alien. Right now though, Naruto was in the Land of Iron for the Cage Summit. He's here acting as one of 2 guards for the 6th Hokage candidate. With the second guard being Kakashi Hitaki, and the Hokage representing Konoha being Danzo. The summit was holding all of the cages from the main 5 countries, with the samurai warrior and the general of the Land of Iron, Mifune, to mediate the event. The summit was convened by the 4th Raikage, due to the Akatsuki's growing activity in recent months to capture the tailed beasts and their Jinchuriki. The Raikage wished for the villages to unite against the Akatsuki. He knew he was going to the summit, since Danzo had explained as such to a shadow clone of Naruto that was still aiding the populace build their village. Naruto did send out clones of himself to keep the suspicion off of him, with a clone always pretending to be the real him. After trekking through the snowy, icy, mountainous lands, cliffs decorated with beautiful carved patterns, with 3 Wolves Mountains acting as a beacon to their future, which is right now. Naruto had changed due to his training and experimenting. He's taller than before, with the same tan skin. His dark blonde, messy, spiky hair had grown a bit to match his father's hairstyle and length, only with a side bang covering some of his right eye. He has the same sea blue eyes, but they hold a serious look in them now. His outfit was still strangely simple, as it was just made up of pitch black pants and a long-sleeve shirt of the same color, both acting as a jumpsuit. The back and sleeves of the shirt held the Uzumaki clan crest. He also wore black boots. Over this, he wears a short-sleeved, knee-long, blood-red coat that is decorated with black flame patterns around the hem. The back of the coat also held the Uzumaki clan crest for the world to see. He had his forehead protector headband around his left arm, with its metal plate, and the Konoha symbol cut into the metal. Naruto was hidden on the upper floor of the room, completely enveloped by the shadow of the room. With him were other hidden figures that were guarding their respective cage. Upon looking at the center of the room, the blonde saw what the room held. In the room were 2 wooden tables, a large horseshoe-shaped one with a small oval one inside it. They sit in a large room made from stone slabs and has stone walls. It has pillars next to an entrance that is closed. A single light illuminates the room. It has 2 levels, a ground floor and an upper floor, where the guards of the cage hide in the spotlight of the room. The second floor is seen with wooden barriers and walls before it, and it can be reached by 2 sets of stairs, one on each side. A number of people are seated at the room's tables in the middle. One is a tall, muscle-bound dark-skinned male with blonde slick-back hair and a blonde goatee. He wears a white haori with golden bracelets underneath. He wears black pants and large black boots with white and red patterns that go beyond his pants. He is also missing his left arm. This person is called Ai, and he's the Raikage of Kumo. Next to him is a slender young-looking pale-skinned female with green eyes, blue lipstick, and ankle-length auburn hair that has a few bangs of hair that frame and cover her face, with the largest bang covering her right eye. She wears a long-sleeved deep blue dress that goes just beyond the knees with a part that opens at the waist over the right leg. Under her dress she has black shorts and wears leggings. She wears high-heeled sandals which reach her knees, and has blue polish on her fingernails and toenails. This is Mizukage, Mei Terumi of Kiri. Next to her is a young male teen the same age as Naruto. He has messy red hair, thick black lines around his pale mint-green eyes. He's wearing a long-sleeved, blood-red coat, which is closed by a brown vest like a moor that is kept in place by straps over his shoulders and around his torso. He wears full-length dark pants and black sandals. This is Gaara, the case-cage of Suna. The last but not least of the cages is Onoki, the Tsuchikage of Iwa. He's a very short, old man with a white triangle-shaped beard and a white long pointed mustache. He also has a big red nose and thick white eyebrows. The top of his head is bald while he has got long white hair on the lower half of his head. He wears a green and yellow coat with a red collar. Under it he wears a flak jacket, armor and full-body black suit. He wears sandals too. Behind each of the cage are banners that have their symbol imprinted on it. Naruto knew that the guards from Kumo and Iwa were eyeing him up, much like their cage did when he walked in with his Hokage. While Gaara seemed to smile at him, and the Mizukage giving him a wink, Kumo and Iwa seemed to tense up and eye him with curiosity and shock. The blonde wondered if the two spotted the connection between him and his father, Minato. The door to the area opens up, to reveal General Mifune, who makes his way to sit at the lonely table inside the horseshoe-shaped one. Mifune is a samurai, and is the general of the Land of Iron. He is an old male with long gray hair that reaches his waist, with bandages wrapped around his head. He has black eyes and gray goatee and mustache. He's wearing a purple kimono-like outfit with sandals. Greetings, Cage, I welcome you to the Land of Iron. I am General Mifune, and I will be the mediator for this Cage Summit. I now ask that you behave, and act civil in this event. Came the commanding voice of reason in this historical event, as he sat down at the lonely table between the fractured leaders of the elemental nations. I asked the general if he could have the floor. The samurai nodded and confirmed it, allowing the Raikage to speak. What I want to know is this. Why has the Akatsuki been allowed to grow to the strength it has now? I demand to know why nothing has been done to stop this threat. Why this organization has missing nin from your villages, and how the hell it's been able to succeed in getting almost every Jinchuriki and tailed beast out there. He started calmly before suddenly getting angry, and slamming his fist against the table, with it barely standing up to his strength. I agree, Raikage. The Akatsuki have taken nearly every Biju. I myself was the container to Shukaku before the aforementioned group got a hold of me. This group should have been dealt with years ago, but no one stepped up to stop it. As of this moment, Naruto is the last Jinchuriki, since your brother was taken not long ago by the Akatsuki. Gaara commented and explained in his dull tone, as he gazed between each of the cage and generals seated around him. His gaze was unwavering and calm. As it stands, I don't trust any of you, nor do I trust any shinobi village that you all belong to. Your villages all have some connection with the Akatsuki. Konoha, Suna, and Mist have missing nin who joined the organization, with Konoha having the majority. Mist was also a staging ground for them, and Iwa has even hired them for missions. I boldly and truthfully said, while leveling a glare to each of the cage in the room, with Suna and Konoha not backing away from his glare or accusations. The Tsuchikage scowling and looking at his hat, and with the Mizukage looking away. In case you didn't notice, Raikage, what you failed to state was that Konoha ninja have been battling the Akatsuki with increasing victory. Just last month, Naruto Namikaze killed the Rinnegan-bearing leader, Pain, and also dealt with his accomplice. Something your village hasn't done. We have been dealing with them, successfully. Clarified Danzo, as he cast a sly look at the fuming eye, who got even more livid at the Hokage's audacity in mocking his mighty village. Onoki at this point was completely unreadable, calling on years of experience. He was a master of keeping calm and being the perfect visage of calm and collectiveness. He knew something was familiar about the lead guard that Danzo had brought with him. So, Iwa's adversary had a child, and if memory served him right, Kumo also had entanglements with Minato during the last war. The smashing of a table caused all the hidden guards in the room to jump to the center, and take up flanking and protective positions around their cage. The cause of the table's destruction was seemingly caused by I. If his fist buried in the wooden table was an indication to the perpetrator. Before Gaara is his older brother and sister. Kankuro is a tall male, wearing purple face paint to further shroud him in mystery. He also wears a black hood which covered his head completely, with a built-in forehead protector. The hood also has cat-like ears. He wears a black outfit consisting of a long top and trousers with a red sash around his waist, complete with black boots. Tamari is a very pale female with teal eyes and sandy blonde hair, which is gathered into 4 consecutive ponytails. She wears mesh armor underneath a sleeveless, purple dress with a purple blouse over it. Her attire also contains a purple sash around her waist, hand warmers, leg guards, and sandals. She also carries a sealing scroll. Guarding Mei was her 2 guards. Ao is a middle-aged man with blue hair which is styled in a moused-up manner. His left eye is blue, while his right eye is covered with an eye patch. He wears a standard striped, gray suit, with a green haori that had white trimmings that stop halfway down, over them. The next guard is Chojuro, who has short, tufty blue hair and dark eyes. He also has pointed, shark-like teeth. He wears square, black-rimmed glasses connected to ear protectors. A blue pin-striped shirt and camouflage pattern wears his forehead protector on the front of his holster which he uses to carry haramekure. The sword itself is wrapped in bandages leaving only the double hilt visible. He also has shuriken holsters strapped onto each of his legs. Protecting Onoki was his defenders, Akatsuchi and Kuritsuchi. Akatsuchi is a large and imposing man, with dark eyes and black hair that spikes out at the back from underneath his bandana-styled forehead protector. He also has large cheeks, and a plump nose which give him an overall look of constant joviality. He wears the red Iwa uniform, which has both its sleeves, underneath his flak jacket, and accentuates it with a yellow scarf which he wraps around his neck. Kuritsuchi has short, black hair and pupil-less, pink eyes that are accentuated by her eyelashes running upwards at the corners. She wears the standard attire of the Iwa ninja, consisting of a red uniform with her right sleeve missing and a lapel over her right leg, the brown Iwa flak jacket, fishnet tights and a skirt over them. She also wears regular shinobi sandals and a pair of gloves. Defending Ai are his 2 guards, C and Darui. C is a young man with short, blonde hair and dark eyes. He wears a sleeveless, black shirt with a one strap over one shoulder white flak jacket, black forehead protector, characteristic black, elbow-length arm guards, and the red and white Kumo shin guards along with a pair of sandals. Alongside C is Darui. Darui is a fairly tall, dark-skinned man with a slightly bulbous nose, black eyes that look bored, and shaggy, white hair which covers his left eye. He wears a high-collared, sleeveless uniform with loose-fitting pants, bandages on his wrists and the one strap over one shoulder flak jacket of a Kumo shinobi. Darui also has symbols of water and lightning tattooed on his right and left shoulders respectively. He carries a broad, foldable, cleaver-like sword, strapped to his back. The last guard protecting Danzo is Kakashi. Kakashi has spiky silver hair that is oriented to his left side, dark gray eyes, and typically a relaxed, heavy-lidded expression. His left eye is covered by his forehead protector. He also has a mask that is used to cover the lower half of his face, preventing most of his face from being visible. Kakashi wears Konoha's standard infantry clothing that consists of a flak jacket, dark blue pants, and a long-sleeve shirt. He also wears fingerless gloves with metal plates on the backhand and is seen with a chain necklace underneath. Standing behind Ai though is Naruto, who is standing with his back towards Ai, but close enough so that the Raikage can tell he's in his personal space. The cage of Kumo is staring straight ahead, much like the other cage are, but on the inside he was slightly nervous. He saw Naruto flash behind him, and it was similar to that of the young blonde's own father. At such a young age the kid was, and Naruto was already faster than himself and Minato. If only he got the blonde into Kumo's ranks years ago, instead of letting Konoha having him. Oh well, maybe they could work something out. After sorting that all out, the guards went behind the banners of their respective village, leaving the cage to talk it out once more. With Gaara making a moving speech to the much older Tsuchikage. The group bickered for much longer. Decades of conflict and competition between their villages make some of the cage reluctant to cooperate or to admit Akatsuki as a real problem, and the strain between some nations was as noticeable as an elephant in the room. It wasn't until Hokage made the revelation that while Pain was the leader of the Akatsuki, there was another leader. The true leader, who goes by the name of Madara Uchiha. That made the cage see a threat in the darkness of the Akatsuki. Mifune proposed that the 5 countries form a coalition, a single body whose goal was to eliminate Akatsuki. The general also suggested that Danzo lead the alliance. It wasn't until Ao, Terumi's bodyguard, using his hidden Byakugan, discovered that Danzo's was secretly using a Sharingan, Shisui Uchiha's Sharingan, to manipulate Mifune's decisions. Everyone was about to act again, until someone dropped in. White Zetsu. The strange being appeared before the cage, announcing that Sasuke Uchiha was near. An enraged Ai responded by choking the life out of Zetsu, and snapping his neck when he failed to answer his inquiries about Sasuke. Ai then stormed out of the meeting room with his guards, to engage, suppress, then kill Sasuke Uchiha. Land of Iron, Cage Summit Venue Tuesday. The venue waiting area is a large, stone-constructed hall-like room, which is supported by pillars in a square formation on the outer edges of the room. The room has touches hung on the walls to provide light to its otherwise dark state. It has a wide corridor at one end, with many smaller ones on the sides. There are windows close to the ceiling of the room. The wall opposite of the single hallway has a large outcropping that also has a doorway that leads to it. There are many knocked samurai scattered about the place, with light blood splatters on the walls and floor. The samurai all wear similar clothing, which is heavy, segmented plate armor that covers the shoulders, chest, upper back, lower sides, and thighs. They also wear gauntlets, shin guards, and horned helmets. The face masks they wear look like respirators. Under their armor is a form-fitting black suit. Standing amongst the sea of unconscious samurai is the one who caused this. Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke Uchiha has pale skin, with spiky black hair. Sasuke's hair has long bangs that frame and cover a bit of his face. The back of his hair is spiky and messy. He wears black pants, over which hangs a navy blue cloth that covers him from his stomach to his knees and which he secures with a purple rope belt. He complements this with a gray zippered, high-collared, short-sleeved shirt and black arm guards that cover his forearms. His eyes are the most fascinating though, as they are black, with 3 red intersecting ellipses, and in the center is a Y-shaped black pupil. Sasuke looks around at his failed dance partners with an annoyed grunt, before casting his eyes to the side, but in truth he's thinking to his team, which is situated on the outcropping behind him. Karen, he calls out, no doubt to a team member hiding behind the cover of the ledge. Can you locate Danzo? Behind the stone banister are 3 individuals. The first one is Karen Uzumaki, whom has crimson eyes, fair skin, and the stunning red hair which she wears in an unusual hairstyle. Her hair is short and spiky on the right side, while longer and straight on the left side. She wears brown narrow glasses, and her outfit consists of a lavender uniform that exposes her navel, short black shorts, and long black thigh-high stockings with black sandals. The next one is Suigetsu, who is a lean-built young man of average height, straight white hair with a light blue tint to it, almond-shaped purple eyes, and has pointed teeth. He wears a purple, sleeveless shirt with blue pants, sandals and a belt around his waist with water bottles attached to it. He also wears another belt strapped to his chest which he uses to carry his sword, the Kabikirabocho. The blade is a massive broadsword shaped like a giant butcher knife with 2 cutouts, a circle close to the top and a semicircular one nearer to the handle, aptly fitting the sword's purpose of decapitation. The latter notch allows a strap to be wrapped around the weapon, making it easier for the user to carry. It also has an extremely long handle. The last one is Jugo. Jugo is a tall, muscular young man who has spiky orange hair, red-orange eyes and a usually calm disposition. He also has a bracket-shaped symbol on his left palm. He wears a pale blue shirt, black pants, a purple cape, and brown sandals. Karen looks to the raven-haired Uchiha below after taking a moment to try to pick the mentioned target's chakra. I can't. Wait, she stopped, after picking up vibrations through her chakra sensing abilities. Is something wrong? Sasuke questioned as he looked at the staircase at the end of the large corridor. Karen smirks lightly, before replying to the object of her admiration. Not at all, your friend, Naruto, just told me where he is. Sasuke smirked slightly, knowing that his friend, rival was here and was helping them. He couldn't wait to see his blonde friend once more, they had so much to catch up on. But the Sharingan user wondered if Naruto was still willing to go along with the plan they created all those years ago, since while he was free of the village, Naruto wasn't free, and Sasuke had wondered if the village eventually converted the blonde to their side. He would wait and see though, as a thunderous crash erupts from the ceiling, leaving large chunks of the stone roof to fall onto the ground with a sickening slam, kicking up a large amount of smoke due to explosion of rock smashing against rock. Upon the smoke dissipating, the figures of I, C, and Darui stand tall on top of the new ground formation. I though is in his powered-up state, the lightning release, chakra mode, which is noted with a lightning blue aura around his body, small discharges of electricity, and the user's hair spiking up. That chakra level, it's as high as a tailed beast. Karen muttered in worry, loud enough for her nearby teammates to hear, but not Sasuke, the team leader, whom was standing not far from the Raikage and his party. Sasuke, upon looking at the situation with his powerful eyes, gained an annoyed frown. He was strangely thankful for Orochimaru in methods to improve his abilities to unnaturally high levels with drugs of varying types to increase his mental activity, body strength, and quicken his reaction times. The experimentations on his being also helped to the point where he was immune to most, if not all, poisons. He acquired some of Orochimaru's attributes after killing him, such as additional chakra reserves, a faster healing rate, and the ability to shed his body. He was also training in Sage mode taught by the snake's leader, the White Snake Sage. All in all, he knew this was going to be a painful fight. Jugo jumps down next to Sasuke, ready to aid him in the coming confrontation. "I'm going to make you feel my fury," the taller male roared out as he removed his haori, his eyes keeping their furious and still glare onto the intruders. Karen mutters something to Suigetsu, with the latter quickly jumping down next Sasuke to back up his allies. He stands close to the raven-haired male, and whispered in his ears subtly the message that Karen had. Karen mentioned the blonde there, saying that he was a sensor type, she can't do anything else with him active. The Uchiha quickly cast his eyes to see and quickly put him into a genjutsu, the Tsukuyomi, thereby quickly removing the problem for some time. He removed his eyes from the knocked-out C, and looks back to the Raikage, who suddenly is on top of him, until Sasuke grabs his team, and teleported away with a smokeless body flicker. Upon touching down, Suigetsu fired off a water release, Water Dragon Jutsu to Darui. The attack is a giant, powerful dragon shaped by water, with the eye areas glowing. Darui responds with a water release, Water Formation Wall, a defensive technique which creates a wall of water in front of the user. The Kabikirabocho user's attack slams into the water shield of Darui, causing a large explosion of water, causing water to be scattered everywhere. The Kumo ninja's attack completely intercepted the water dragon with its own, showing no damage on him. The Kumo Jonin quickly pulls out his cleaver sword, a broad sword with a fairly long hilt, which has 3 hinges running along the blade itself. He quickly defends himself from Suigetsu's Kabikirabocho swinging down from above. The 2 clashing swords create sparks as the 2 powerful blades clash. Sasuke at this time is dealing with a very angry, and fast, Raikage. The Raikage truly lived up to his proclaimed, world's fastest shinobi. The young Uchiha had trouble dodging the Kumo Kage's attacks, and had even more problems attacking him, since I could simply move out of the way of the majority of his moves. Although he was able to land a flapping Chidori onto the mighty torso of I, only for it to cause a light scratch instead of going through it like it was intended. So now he was switching it from just using lightning-based moves, to combinations of fire and lightning with his swords, coating fire around his shuriken and sword, but also adding lightning to them as well, giving him a very violent edge. If this had been any other time, I would have complimented the invading Uchiha for his speed and skills in varying fields. He was also impressed that someone could at least give him a workout apart from his dear brother. But right now, the Raikage was furious. The person he was fighting had a hand in capturing his little brother, Killer Bee, and he wanted serious revenge for that. Never mind the fact that the raven-haired boy was attacking a neutral country, and attempting to attack all the Kage. The 2 broke apart from their close-quarters battle with Sasuke looking worse for wear. I meanwhile had a few marks on him, but didn't look as bad as the Uchiha did in terms of battle damage. Jugo had gotten involved in the fight, by using his Sage Mode transformation to attack the powered-up Raikage. Jugo's transformation looked like the curse mark's power-up, no doubt where Orochimaru got the inspiration from when he created said mark. Jugo's skin is now dark, and his sclera has become black with pale yellow eyes. He also gains a black stripe running from the middle of his forehead and down the bridge of his nose. He has jet boosters on his back, shielded forearms, and various other appendages to suit his battle combat situation. He also has, as well as having a deranged look, his powered-up state allowed him to swiftly move about, allowing him to dodge Ai's lariats and attacks with his heightened reflexes, and his body toughness and resilience allowed him to take a beating, as he took a good punch from the lightning-enhanced fourth raikage that penetrated both his arm and chest, yet still managing to retaliate almost immediately after with ease, despite the speed and power of the attack and injury he had sustained. On the other side of newly formed arena, Suigetsu was locked in a deadly swords dance with Darui, and was initially hoping for a quick victory, but that was not to be, as the Jonin from Kumo was truly befitting of his station and rank. Darui's skills with his own cleaver sword was similar if not better than the skills currently in play with Suigetsu's own. The Kumo ninja was much faster as well, as he didn't have to heave the person-tall Kabikirabocho around in the fight. Even though the force behind Sasuke's swordmaster was enough to send Darui away, it didn't keep the Jonin from Suigetsu for long, as the defender of the raikage was always on the former sound ninja's toes, not giving the teen a moment's rest. But also Darui wasn't just a master of one element, but a user of many, and all of which were deadly to Suigetsu, and they fitted well with Darui's fighting prowess. Ai eventually moved to attack Sasuke again, only this time the young Uchiha was prepared. He rapidly summoned a Susanoo ribcage around his body to protect him. The royal purple ethereal chakra shroud was then coated by Sasuke's blaze release powers, a black flame that was also known as Amaterasu, but given the term blaze release when applying shape transformation to the holy flames. Ai shoulder barged the imperfect defensive shell of Sasuke's Susanoo, broke through it, and the broad shoulder and arm slammed into the Sasuke's much small frame, and sent him down the area, sending him skidding across the ground like a pebble across a pond. After coming to a standstill, the Uchiha quickly got up to defend himself, only to see Ai quickly removing his left arm, that then quickly burned away into ash by the intense flames of Amaterasu. Darui, quickly spotting his leader's problem, quickly moved away from his fighting with the swordsmen of Sasuke's group to aid his cage. Sasuke quickly took this moment to call his team and make their way to their target's location. The summit room itself, where Danzo was located. Land of Iron, Cage Summit Room, Tuesday. While this was going on, the cages were keeping a watchful eye on the door and surrounding area, to make sure there was no more intruders. The guards were also doing this. General Mifune though was looking straight at Danzo, without also looking at the Hokage candidate with scowl. No, Lord Mifune, his ocular powers are not active right now. The tall guard of the Mizukage replied to the general's query. You have lost your credibility. I would have chosen you to lead the nations against the Atatsuki. Would have, is unacceptable. I'm prepared to use any methods necessary in order to protect the world. Hashirama wanted to unite the world as a single entity, and I intend to do the same. Danzo interrupted as he looked straight at the mediator of the Cage Summit with conviction. Danzo truly believed he was correct in his views, and no doubt others felt the same way. But no one likes force being used in such a way. Naruto looked at Gaara during the continued ramble between the cages about trust and ethical matters. The red-haired cage seems to be thinking about something, and thinking about whatever he was thinking of deeply. After Danzo's comment about trust not needed when regarding the outcome, Gaara speaks his mind to the group. Unable to trust each other, if that is the world, if that is being human, there is no future for anyone. Understanding and trusting in one another, if we lose that, only fear and darkness will rule this world. Acting with no regard for what you think is right, resigning oneself. I find such things hard to accept. I ask you all this question. Oh? Onoki responded with an amused expression, before deciding to amuse the boy. Sure, I'll answer anything. When did you all forsake yourselves? The red-haired male questioned back with an unnerving and unyielding glare to the Tsuchikage, who seemed to jerk back at the question directed at him. Kuretsuchi cast her strong eyes to the person guarding Danzo's left side, Naruto. She had conflicting emotions running through her mind. She was in awe of his presence, almost glad he was there, and another part of her wanted to kill him for his father's actions during the last war, to which Minato Namikaze killed many Iwa shinobi. The young female scanned the features and stance of the Namikaze-Uzumaki hybrid before her, and she came to a few conclusions. She was very good at reading emotions, and while Naruto seemed to be collective, she could tell he was melodramatic on the inside. She could see him glance with hatred to Danzo for whatever reason every so often, letting her deduce that the blonde despised the shadowy male. She also noticed that the blonde was close to Kakashi and the Suna ninja. She wondered if Kakashi had taught Naruto, as it was befitting of his situation, as the student of the Yellow Flash would end up teaching the child. If only she knew the full story. She whispered her observations to Onoki, who then looked at the young Namikaze slightly, seeing if his granddaughter was correct in her analytical study of Naruto and his body language. She was right on the ball in his mind. However, the sudden looks of Naruto and Ao aimed at the door caused the others to also look in the general direction. It seems that Sasuke was insistent on getting into this room. He's coming. Naruto shook his head, as all the banners bearing the symbols of the cage were slashed, letting them fall and crumple onto the floor. No, he's already here. He mutters, as he looks up, seeing Sasuke standing on the ceiling like a bat, glaring down at Danzo with anger-hatred burning in his eyes. The Uchiha had found his prey. Sasuke Uchiha? Kakashi muttered as he gazed at the person who left Konoha all those years ago. He had truly grown since then, in a way. He was proud of how well the teen had grown, both in terms of power and physical growth. The Jonin could tell that Naruto was also similarly proud. He just wondered if the raven-haired male was still on their side. Mifune jumped up into the air to deal with the interloper. At the same time though, Danzo bolted out of the room. Mifune quickly tried to slice through Sasuke with his mighty katana, only for it to connect with Sasuke's own lightning-coated one. The general was quickly forced back down to his seat due to the raw strength the raven-haired male had behind him. Sasuke, Danzo bolted, came the voice of Karen, who pointed to a new hole in the wall behind where Danzo was seated. Jugo and Suigetsu, with the former still in his powered-up state, jumped to attack the guards. Ao leapt over the tables to the new opening, informed his cage that he was going after Danzo, before chasing after him. Jugo moved to attack Gaara and his siblings to buy more time. Kakashi also went after the 6th Hokage candidate, while Naruto gazed into the eyes of Sasuke, who also returned the gaze. A silent message was sent between the two, the unspoken words of a comradeship, friends to the end of the line. Naruto nodded to his friend, before he himself chased after Danzo. Karen, under Sasuke's orders, was keeping a solid lock on Naruto, since the blonde would lead them to their target. Onoki and his guard wasn't getting involved with what was about to happen next. As the Haramekure and Kabikirabocho continued to clash against each other in a dance between their wielders, Sasuke's eternal Mangekyo Sharingan quickly scanned the door. He dropped down and landed gracefully, before attempting to also track down the acting Hokage. His plan was curtailed when a wall of lava spewed forth onto the opening, before quickly solidifying, stopping the young Uchiha in his steps. You Akatsuki have traveled all over the hidden mist, and manipulated the 4th Mizukage. Sasuke turned his head to look at Mei, who seemed to explaining her issue regarding the organization that Sasuke represented. The Uchiha knew of the stories. Tobi had explained to him how the bloodline war in Mist was started. It seemed that Tobi, or Madara, as he called himself, caused the entire event by controlling the Mizukage at the time. Sasuke wanted to destroy Madara there and then, but he didn't have the power to do it. But he also didn't want to destroy the last of his clan. He may have been heartless and cold, but he didn't want to do that. Not yet anyway. Tobi did need to pay for his crimes, and Sasuke wasn't sure he would be able to defeat the self-proclaimed Madara. The young Uchiha didn't believe that his boss was Madara, but the person in question was still very powerful. Mei continued, and yet, when I look at you closely, you Uchiha are quite handsome indeed. With a sort of remorseful tone to her voice, as she glanced at the handsome Uchiha with her green eyes. Kami, not another one for my looks. Sasuke thought with a groan as he turned to look at the Mizukage. He was annoyed once more for someone enjoying him for his looks. It was like being in Konoha all over again. He was angry that she also got in the way of his target, so he let her know his feelings on the matter. Do not interfere. The Mizukage sighed sadly, before standing up to get ready to fight the rogue Uchiha. Alright, at least I'll give you a kiss goodbye, she commented, just before she quickly blurred through hand signs. Lava release. Melting apparition technique. She calls out, before she fires out a stream of lava from her mouth. She aims the jet of lava at Sasuke's position, who quickly summons his ultimate defense to save his hide from the spray. The purple ribcage and glow of the Susanoo protected him perfectly from the attack. Sasuke tutted slightly at the attempt to stop him. He didn't have time for this. Hurry up you guys, we can't let the murderer get away. Suigetsu was kicked away by Chojuro, who quickly drew the Haramekure. A blade that was wide and flat with two curved indentations near its base. The overall sword looks like a flounder fish in shape. The bandages explode from it, with chakra also suddenly expanding from its form. Upon creating the shape of a giant mallet, Chojuro slammed the hammer into the defense of Sasuke. Although the defense still held up well, much to the surprise of everyone, including Sasuke, the young Uchiha, and his Susanoo protection was sent through the wall of the room, and the wall of the corridor next to it, sending him out of the building. Sasuke! Karen shouted, as she ran out to the new opening to see the fate of her crush. Land of Iron, Summit Venue Exterior, Tuesday. Sasuke had forgotten about the falling he was going through. He was still trying to find his brain after that hammer. It still winded him, making him lose focus for a second. Upon realizing his predicament, he quickly summoned a large, brown hawk. After quickly getting his footing, he went back up the side of the mountain he fell from, and reached the opening to the summit location. Sasuke did admit that it was truly a great place to build a fortress, inside a cliff with only one real entrance. Unless you were a shinobi, then you could get in through a few windows in the exposed sections of massive complex. If he was noticing the horizon and environment around him, he would have noticed it was a snowy, cold place still filled with nature, frozen lakes, and the odd life form. In the distance though, it was how he remembered the landscape of the land of fire surrounding Konoha. So full of life, a sea of green and nature in all its glory. Upon closing in on his surprise exit, he saw Karen standing at the opening waiting for him, although he knew that she was seeing if he fell to his death. He knew he had to get there faster. If the sudden explosion behind Karen was any indication to increase his speed, that and his Uzumaki teammate suddenly being pushed out of the window by Suigetsu. The swordsman was also holding a young Jugo. Clearly the crazed member of the team had overexerted himself and had turned into a child. Sasuke knew that Jugo needed to feed on the living to return back to his full strength. After catching the falling triplets on his hawk, he quickly got away from the summit location, gaining ground quickly, and not getting anyone pursuing him. Alright, let's get patched up, then we'll go after Danzo. The team leader, Sasuke, stated as he glanced at his team, seeing the injuries and marks on his allies. He knew he had sustained damages as well, but he wasn't stopping until Danzo was dead by his hands. Land of Iron, Samurai Bridge, Tuesday. Placed over a slow-flowing river, and built to connect to plots of land, a bridge built out of gray stones stands strong. It features a large gate at one end, somewhat resembling a torii, emblazoned with the kanji for samurai. On top of the gate is a large stone statue of a sheathed sword with weights hanging on both ends. Paths on the lands connect to the bridge, either made from stone or dirt. They all lead from unknown locations but stretch down alongside the river or lead up into the mountains and forests. It was a breathtakingly beautiful place, full of calm serenity, but that was all about to change. Danzo strolled down the bridge after escaping from the summit. It took him some time, but he was able to reach this bridge, finally. He wasn't going to battle Sasuke, he had his destiny to achieve. He wasn't about to die before his chance, he wasn't going to die due to some revenge-driven brat. He wondered if the hero of Konoha was dealing with the rogue Uchiha. Although any thought to that notion was halted when the blonde in question landed behind him, with Kakashi landing next to the Hokage candidate. "We finally caught up with you, Danzo," Naruto said with a sickly sweet smile. He was finally going to let loose on the old man. Chop off the head of the snake, and the body will die. By destroying Danzo, Root will collapse, and Konoha will be one less of a strong shinobi. Naruto's plans were now in full swing, and with Danzo's destruction, the plan will open with an explosive start. Just how the blonde wanted it. The stand-in Hokage looked ahead. Years of experience was screaming out to him. His years of honing his senses all came to the same conclusion. This was a trap, and he was the bait. But Naruto wouldn't do this, right? From what he gathered, the blonde seemed content with Konoha, and wouldn't attack him or any of the citizens of his home. Danzo knew that Naruto was a patriot, much like himself. If only the Shimura clan member knew the truth. But Danzo was ready for such an event. In the hills and trees ahead, an army of his Rude and waited and observed. The War Hawk knew that if the blonde were to attack, his hidden guards would jump in and eliminate the enemy. While he was sure about the competence of his soldiers, he was unsure how they would fare against Naruto and Kakashi, if the latter was also planning to attack him. Naruto wasn't an idiot. He knew Danzo wouldn't be secure just having 2 guards. No, the blonde was expecting the elderly man to have a few tricks up his sleeve. So the unpredictable ninja brought some reinforcements of his own. His hidden team was sticking to the shadows around them. The blonde acted first, by quickly forming then blasting a wind release Rasengan into the back of Danzo, causing the Hokage to cough up blood, and exclaim in surprise and shock. The attack grinded into the back of the Root leader, before he was propelled away with speed, before the attack exploded, taking Danzo with it. Kakashi looked at the attack in surprise. He wasn't expecting that. He knew how the Rasengan worked, but never did he think he'd see someone fire it from their hands. He wondered if this was an extension to the final product of the jutsu after adding the elements to it. However, when the white-haired male was about to address his student, the blonde was looking to the side. Specifically, a nearby pillar that supported the bridge, and lo and behold, Danzo was standing there. What? How is he standing there? He should have been torn to pieces in that attack. There's no blood there either. Was that clone? Or was it something else? Were the thoughts of Kakashi, as his soul eye opened wide in response. He quickly uncovered his left eye, showing his Mangekyo Sharingan, which is 3 stretched triangles evenly spaced around the pupil that each curve at the top around the eye to form a circle, making it similar to a pinwheel. So, this is the Izanagi. Naruto thought to himself, as he studied the perfectly intact form of Danzo, whom was staring down at him with beady, shady eyes. Danzo wasn't going to play around, so he removed the bandages that hid his arm and face, showing to the world what was under them. The once hidden arm was white and implanted with 10 more Sharingan, and the image of a face was protruding from his right shoulder, where Hashirama's cells were injected into his body. He also removed the bandages from his face, show his Sharingan to them. Danzo's implanted eye pattern is 4 curved half triangles evenly spaced around the pupil that reach the edges of the iris, making it similar to a pinwheel in design. "You look damn ugly," Naruto commented with a serious chuckle, as his life eyes turned on, and his Sage mode also activated at the same time. "So you wish to challenge me, Jinchuriki? Very well. I'll show you why I was a rival to Hiruzen," the malformed man declared, as he went through hand signs. "Wind release, vacuum sphere," he said just before he took a deep breath, then exhaling several spherical bullet-like wind blasts in such a manner that they are dispersed over an expansive range. The attack cut through the bridge in various places, but due to the agility of Naruto and Kakashi, the blonde was glad his dexterity and maneuverability was really high. As during his evading, he was creating a purple sphere in the palms of his arms, and just as he landed, he thrusted his arms forward towards Danzo. The attack in question was an eerie, evil purple with black lightning surrounding it. There were now 2 balls connected together by a string of negative energy revolving around each other, while Kakashi let off a lightning release. Lightning Beast tracking Fang towards the Hokage. The hound-shaped lightning attack was still connected to the user's hand, allowing them to control it during its attack. Both attacks slammed into the body of Danzo, causing a large explosion mixed with dark and lightning energies. And it seemed that the elderly man survived again, as he suddenly appeared next to Naruto and was about to cut through him with his wind release vacuum blade. But a light shield appeared around the blonde, stopping the attack instantly. As the man was about to attack again, Kakashi ran a lightning cutter through the chest of Danzo, causing him to hack up blood due to the attack. But it was all an illusion once more, as Danzo faded from view, only to appear down the bridge from them. "What's going on? We should have killed him a few times now," Kakashi wondered while leveling a glare at the survivor of both his and his student's attacks. "Take a look at his arm. The power he's using, the Izanagi is closing his Sharingan. Kurama told me all about the Sharingan and its various abilities. When activated, the caster removes the boundaries between reality and illusion within their personal space. To a degree, this allows the user to control their state of existence, but it is normally active for only the briefest of moments. At the same time, a skilled enough user of this technique can expand Izanagi's range beyond one's personal reality, able to affect a whole swath of people during the technique's activation. So he's bending reality to keep himself alive? How is that possible? Kakashi asked his former student, surprised at how this technique works. So they're all trapped in this attack? Naruto continued his lecture with a bored tone. While the target remains physically real while fighting, Izanagi is capable of turning any occurrence, this includes injuries and even death inflicted upon them, into mere illusions. Whenever the user receives a fatal injury, he or she automatically fades away as though they were an illusion all along and then returns back to reality, physically real and unscathed. The technique is based on a technique the Sage of the Six Paths had, referred to as creation of all things technique. The process he used is explained to have initially involved the administration of imagination, and the spiritual energy which forms the basis of yin chakra to create shape and form from nothingness. Then, through the application of vitality, and the physical energy which forms the basis of yang chakra, he would breathe life into the prior form. Thus, a technique with the power to turn imagination into reality was born, known as Izanagi. But, the Sage of the Six Paths is a myth, isn't he? The white-haired ninja stuttered out in surprise. He'd always assumed the stories of the sage were fairy tales, with some of the abilities of the sage being told worldwide. It's hard to believe someone like that could exist. But yet here Naruto was, basically saying that the sage was indeed real, and that Kyuubi, if Kakashi was right in his deduction about the Kurama character, had met him all those years ago. Naruto glanced at Kakashi with an annoyed frown, before turning back to Danzo. I assure you, he's no myth. Back to the matter at hand. Izanagi can be used only by those with the genetic traits of the Sage of Six Paths. The Uchiha, descended from the sage, are able to perform Izanagi with their Sharingan. But, even with such an eye acting as a medium, gaining the power to briefly control reality's flow as the user sees fit comes at a price. One has very limited reserves of time within a single eye for invoking this technique. This technique would normally be used for only the direst of situations, as after the Sharingan with which Izanagi was casted exceeds its limit, the said eye becomes powerless and is rendered blind permanently, with the rare exception that its sight and power can be restored to the said eye by further evolving it into a Rinnegan. All we have to do is keep Danzo using those eyes, and time is up for him. Danzo was somewhat surprised at the words of Naruto. Was this just all about his most secret of powers? So much information could be learned from the blonde. He could use that information to become the leader of the nations. All the knowledge and power at his disposal. He wasn't about to let that reservoir of knowledge escape his grasp. He wasn't about to let Naruto, the prize of Konoha, run around freely anymore. His musing and planning was stopped dead, when explosions behind him echoed and thundered through the valley and area. Those were the rough locations where his soldiers were. Did something happen? Upon looking at the smug face of Naruto, he knew that the blonde was the cause of it. The War Hawk knew that if it came down to it, he will pull of his most deadly abilities, namely wood release, and if that didn't work, reverse 4 symbols sealing will stop this insurrection. Land of Iron, hills surrounding the Samurai Bridge, Tuesday. In the forest and hills around the Samurai Bridge, many battles were raging between Danzo's Root Anbu, and the forces that Naruto had brought with him, the Animatronics. The forces of the darkness of the shinobi were not even a challenge for the girls and their powers, however unorthodox they appeared to be. The Root Anbu are a testament to how to never judge a book by its cover, and they judged their opponents poorly. Indeed, a large number of them were now just stains on the environment, with body parts scattered about due to varying attacks by the androids. The members of Root wear the standard cloak and mask of the Konoha Anbu. They don't have an actual standardized uniform like the others. Underneath the cloaks each Root member wears a personal attire. The only single distinguishing garment they all wear is a short, black, midriff jacket, with red straps over the shoulders along with the tip-less tanto. Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, Freya, and Goldie had formed one team. Mangle, Bon Bon, Toy Franny, Toy Chica, and Balloon Girl was another. With the last team containing RWQ, Purple Rika, Marion, Bear, and Spring Bonnie. The first team was standing together in a pentagon formation, with all members staring at the group of Root in front of them. The others had essentially been bugs hitting a windshield. These would soon be joining the others in the next life. Oh, how Foxy was enjoying the killing of vermin. These emotionless drones were perfect to vent her pent-up anger on, and they were Konoha shinobi also, that just made it all the more better for her. The girls, fully prepared to engage these foes, were able to dodge the thrown varying types of kunai, shuriken, and elemental attacks. Some of the girls broke to the sides, while Goldie brought up a defensive move called the Neon Wall, which is a purple holographic barrier that protected a large area behind it. While some attacks went through, as it only negated about 50 to 70% of all the attacks, the effectiveness of the attacks that broke through was brought down drastically. The Root Ninja, quickly realizing that their attacks were useless in the wake of the shield, tried other methods of dealing with their foes. One such shinobi tried charging through the neon wall, only to turn into bloody, messy chunks upon going through it. The others also forfeited their continued existence at the hands of the machines. Foxy unscrewed the limbs of one of the Root members, literally, she took of their head, arms, and legs as if she was turning a tap. It may have been a bit extreme for her to do so, but she relished in the cries of the person before she took their life. Bonnie toyed with her enemy for a moment before she pounced on him with her Jacko bomb attacks, in which she called forth pumpkin-themed chakra attacks from around to converge on an area. All that was left of her foe was scattered craters due to her attack. Goldie had someone try to get behind her to strike her down, such a coward, but even that didn't save him from her power. She released the deepest, most demonic-sounding scream into his face, causing him to die of the sudden jump scare. Even the lady of the group was not holding back against her adversary, as she quickly sent a horde mini-versions of her to steamroll him. As the Freddles ran over him, they tore chunks of flesh and matter from his downed form. Resistance was futile, as he quickly succumbed to his fate and died to the attack. Freya cleaned the splattered blood off of her fur as the Freddles vanished, before moving back to Goldie. Chica didn't take long with hers, as she quickly threw a chakra buzzsaw attack at the enemy, splitting him in half down the middle, letting his corpse flop to the sides. Mangle, Bon Bon, Toy Franny, Toy Chica, and Balloon Girl were attacking another group of Root in another part of the area. They were closer to the river, and were just as quick to deal with their foes as the first group did with theirs. Mangle dealt with her enemy by unleashing a pizza wheel attack upon him, which burned, scalped, cut, and maimed him to the point until death reached him to collect his soul for the next life. Mangle could have sworn that death shook its invisible head towards her, before it went off to do its soul accumulating. Bon Bon sent out a cluster of musical notes that destroyed the eardrums of the Root that tried to set her on fire, before she increased the sound waves generated, and aimed them all at him. It wasn't long before the shinobi stopped screaming and dropped to the floor dead, as blood trickled out of every orifice, and his brain turned to mush. Toy Franny held up her end of the conflict, as she used her speed song to gain a massive increase in speed to the point where she seemed to be a blur, completely dazing the Root enemy. After he settled down from trying to kill her, she threw her microphone through the chest area of the enemy, causing him to scream in shock at the new entrance into his body, before the mic came back and tore through his exposed heart that dangled in the opening. The man tried to mutter something, but dropped to the floor before he could attempt anything. During this, Toy Chica sent out a yellow and red ball, which soon after popped open in a cloud of smoke. The Root Anbu would have snorted with laughter, although that stopped when a random attack came forth, and it was Munchies. The many traps with eyes landed all over him, causing him to gain the many metallic teeth dig into various parts of his body. He bellowed in agony as the attacking teeth dug deeper into him, before the one clamped around his neck severed the head from his body. The Munchies, having finished their meal, quickly vanished into smoke, leaving Toy Chica with just mangled remains. And the last of that team, Balloon Girl, unleashed balloon hell upon her problem. She sent out a fleet of multicolored balloons to her Root enemy, who cut through some of the strangely directed floating bags, until one grazed his back. That was the end for him, as it exploded on his back, taking him along with it. It also set off a chain reaction with the other balloons around him. Elsewhere, RWQ, Purple Rika, Marion, Bear, and Spring Bonnie were dealing their root targets. RWQ, like Purple Rika, were enjoying their new bodies. During the time of Naruto's training with them, he was able to build them bodies based after their shadowy forms. It was hard for it, even with Mito's notes on how to construct animatronics and the aid of the others. But in the end, their blonde lover was able to build them real bodies. Even though they still could transform into their ghost states that they had gotten used to, the feeling of having a real body outweighed the want to be ghost all the time. Right now though, RWQ had dealt with her enemy by poisoning them to death with her bad pizza attack. Even though the attack in question was meant to deal with large groups, she didn't have many other attack capabilities. The large, chakra-made, poisoned pizza was her favorite move. The other shadow animatronic, Purple Rika, had used her most deadly attack, and indeed one of the most powerful attacks the girls have, the ESC key attack, in which she can manipulate the forces of nature, and the forces of the universe, to remove someone from the face of the cosmos, as if the person never existed. The area in front of her became distorted with darkness, as if the universe glitched, and that glitch covered the henchman of Danzo, and removed him from existence. Marion Simple unleashed the most deadly attack the girls have, and that she can only use so far, the fourth wall attack. It's similar to the ESC key attack, except it will always hit its target. While Purple Rika's most fierce attack only works about 30% of the time, the fourth wall works every time. The thick energy wall, comprised of neon blue and glowing white energies, slammed into the enemy's fire release, Fireball Jutsu, before it reached him and quickly vaporized him just like it did to the jutsu he tried to hit her with. He didn't have a chance. Bear quickly dealt with hers, by using her powers to create a large jaw brimmed with sword-like teeth around the body of the shinobi of Root, before the jaw closed on him, bisecting him at the waist. Just as the upper body descended to the ground, the jaws slammed shut and tore through his torso like a hot knife on butter. The large crunch and strangled screams fell deaf on the bear, who checked to see how her sister, Spring Bonnie, was doing. Spring Bonnie used her second favorite attack on the last Root Solider, the Springlocks attack, in which she creates a chakra mask on her target's face. The mask would then act like the Springtrap suit when the spring locks malfunctioned. Only in this attack it would center the locks on the facial area, severely injuring, or outright killing, whoever had the mask on. Her victim suffered a terrible fate, as he tried to pry the chakra mask off, only to die a painful and brutal death. The girls met up after dealing with the Root Ninja that tried to fight back, and utterly failed in their objective. Either they were too powerful and/or badass, or the enemy really underestimated them. If one were to question Foxy on the matter, she would go with the former, but remove powerful from the sentence, and just have badass there. The girls made it back to the bridge to see how the battle had fared, and it wasn't faring well for the Shinobi of Darkness. Land of Iron, Skies, Tuesday. The group had been flying for some time in an attempt to find their target, and Sasuke wasn't too happy about the situation. He wasn't about to give up finding Danzo. The man needed to pay for his crimes against his clan. It wasn't until Jugo found out from a passing bird, due to his clan's abilities to talk to animals, that they had a lead. According to the bird, there was a massive battle going on between many people, and one of the persons involved was Danzo. So Sasuke made haste to the location, with Karen getting a firm location as to where this confrontation was going down. Even if the redhead nearly fainted due to the amount of chakra fluctuating and discharging in the area due to the fight. After getting directly overhead, they made a nosedive to the level the fight was at, although not much appeared to be happening. Land of Iron, Samurai Bridge, Tuesday. The battle hadn't been going well for Danzo the minute it started. Even with his mastery of the wind element, and him sending out wave after wave of his many attacks, his wind release, wind release, vacuum blade, wind release, vacuum grade sphere, wind release, vacuum serial waves, wind release, vacuum sphere, wind release, vacuum wave, and wind release, air bullets. All of them and more didn't work against the combined might of Kakashi and Naruto, even though the attacks struck them a few times, and he had his wood release ensnare them both a few times. None of them stopped the confrontation. The two seemed unstoppable. They kept attacking him, using their own attacks and elements against him, with both traitors using just about every element in the world against him. He thought he would have a chance at taking control of the Jinchuriki using his Sharingan, but it wasn't working. So he tried to use it on the son of the White Fang, only for it to not work on him too. Was the Sharingan he got from Shisui not working? Or was it something else blocking his control? His regeneration ability didn't hold up too well either, and he had run out of Sharingans to keep using his Izanagi ability. He would have used more of his wood release, but that was out the window, as Naruto had torn the limb that held that power, the right arm, from his body, before destroying it with light release. Now here he was, panting, bleeding from just about everywhere. His Sharingan had just been removed by Naruto for some unknown reason. His lone, narrow eye kept a lock on the source of this beating and torture. Kakashi looked winded and damaged, but not so much in comparison to Danzo. The gray-haired male's stance was relaxed, showing true experienced serenity to his surroundings. Naruto also looked as experienced, but still had a tenseness to his form. Danzo had thought that Kakashi would be the most troublesome of the opponents, only for Naruto's abilities and skills to prove his thoughts wrong. He realized that the blonde was using the very eyes that he had as a child, meaning that the seals on the blonde had been removed. His skin paled dramatically upon discovering this. Their plan had failed. He now knew why the blonde was in hiding for the last month. He was training in his lost abilities. He knew his root had been defeated by the forces of the blonde, and that those forces were behind him on the bridge to prevent his escape. Glancing back, he saw the androids used at FFD and FFP stopping his escape. His failing mind clicked on as to where the real blonde was during the month. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. So he knows everything, huh? The lies of the village, the false promises from Hiruzen. He sees through everything you set in stone for him. I warned you that this would happen, and now look. Your sins have doomed us all. Your sins are like a black hole, sucking everything in, destroying everything around it. But life still flourished in your darkness, and that whirlpool of fire will burn everything it touches. He laments as he looked at Naruto with power, even if it was fading fast. He didn't even hear the landing of feet behind him. Team Taka had arrived, and seeing Naruto and Kakashi look behind him caused the Hokage to look as well. He might as well have been staring death in the eyes, with how demonic and fierce Sasuke's eyes were. Judging him for every sin he created, judging the leaf for every sin it created. I also know everything, Danzo Shimura. Your death wouldn't have happened if you didn't cause the needless deaths of my clan, forcing Itachi to live with the pain of everything your actions caused. Sasuke muttered out in disdain and hatred, his eyes glowing and burning brightly with vengeance and death. It had come full circle. With Danzo's death, the Uchiha will be cleansed of the darkness that removed it from this world. Self-sacrifice, that's what epitomizes a shinobi. Never seeing the light of day, toiling in the shadows. That's the way of a true shinobi and not just Itachi. Countless shinobi have died the same way. This world could not function on ideals and pleasantries. It's thanks to people like him that peace has been maintained. The Uchiha clan's demise kept peace in the world, if only temporary. Danzo replied honestly with defiance. He was true to his convictions, the world desired peace, and sometimes, one has to let go to secure that peace and order. The Hokage coughed up a glob of blood. He wasn't going to last much longer at this rate, but at least he'll have a chance to look back on his life, seeing how much he did wrong. If he believed he did anything wrong. After all, he was an end justifies the means type of person. He did anything and everything needed to bring peace, even if it was unethical and morally wrong. There never was peace, the world was still at war and fractured. It's a mirror that had been dropped with the owner frantically trying to put the puzzle together once more. Only to get bloody hands and break more fragments. Naruto retorted, knowing that even during the Uchiha's downfall, numerous other battles were going on around the world, and more problems rising up from it, perfectly fitting as to what Naruto said in his speech to him. I can't die now. Danzo started out desperately, as he tried to cling to life. He believed his journey wasn't over yet, he hadn't finished his mission in life. I'll do anything to survive. I am the only one who can change this world. I will stop your plans to destroy it. He cried out in the end, ready to activate his reverse 4 symbols ceiling in order to stop the two friends' plans to destroy Konoha. You're an eyesore, Sasuke stated with a dark edge, as he brought forth the upper body of his Susanoo, which was a purple ethereal being that possessed demonic horns, a long appendage on its chin, and a malevolent grin. Its armored form resembles a long-nosed tengu, wearing a pair of magatama earrings, and having jagged teeth around its hood. The armor's mouth has a beak-like shape and looks somewhat ghastly. He fires a purple arrow coated with black flames at Danzo. It fired very quickly from the bow manifested on the wrist of the left arm. The attack surges away and upwards into the sky, taking the Hokage with it. Blaze release. Susanoo flame control. He shouts as Danzo falls from the arrow, yet the arrow continued, before it seemingly exploded into hundreds of smaller ones, all of which head to the ground, with a number of them striking Danzo. Soon enough though, Danzo could hardly be seen through the sea of purple needles from the sky. That wasn't the end, as an angry pitch-black tornado of Amaterasu exploded from all of the arrows, covering the entire area. Even from this distance, the heat could still be felt. Naruto did wonder what it felt like for Danzo. Oh well, he didn't care. Burn out, Sasuke finally said, as an arrow shot down into the tornado, followed by it exploding brilliantly, destroying everything around it. Black flames settled the area until the Uchiha finally stopped the flames with his eyes. Naruto whistles in appreciation as he turns to face his friend. That was a good bonfire. He then gets serious in both posture and expression. I have much to tell you, brother. If you want, I can tell you on the way to what I think is the perfect place to create our new village. Sasuke focused all of his attention onto his blonde friend. So the plan was still on, and Naruto hadn't been corrupted by the scum haven known as Konoha. Alright, we'll catch up on the way there. Kakashi, Team Animatronics, and Team Taka followed Naruto, as he went ahead to lead them on their trek to their new home. A place they could be truly safe, happy, and welcome. As the group made their way away from the bridge, they missed the curious gaze of someone hidden in the shadows, a person who wore an orange mask. Land of Whirlpools, Hidden Eddy Village Ruins, Friday. It took a few days to travel to the location, a location that Kakashi and Karen knew very well. The ruins of Whirlpool, the home of the Uzumaki clan. It took a few days longer by flight as they skirted around the Land of Fire to avoid any shinobi from that country. Naruto and Sasuke had caught up during the travels, with both of them learning about what the other had done during the time of their separation. Naruto had to get his Uchiha friend up to speed about the darker secrets Konoha had, and even showed him the books of the 3rd and 5th Hokages. To say Sasuke was happy was a total and utter lie. He was not amused at all by the village of Konoha. He was tempted to destroy it using a meteor coated with Amaterasu to remove the stain from the world with the purity of the meteor. To read that the village truly didn't care much about his clan broke Sasuke's heart. To think that Itachi was loyal to that scumhole, if his older brother had read this, Itachi might have changed his mind about who he killed that day. After strolling through the ruined village that seemed to have been composed of several high-rise buildings, the group came to a stop over a large, fragmented bridge that gapped a wide river which seemingly ran through the village. There was evidence of at least another bridge, but that had faded into advanced stages of decay, much like most of the village. The surrounding countryside was dominated by stunning, beautiful steep hills. The village itself was very large. It reached the coast to view the open sea, and some parts of the large settlement reached up the hills. According to the maps of the whole island, there were various outposts, small population centers, and even plans to make a secondary village on the opposite side of the island. There was even underground labs and bunkers on the maps left by Mito, but only map was blurred out. But alas, that was not to be due to the untimely destruction of the mighty clan. But it could be rebuilt once more. With the help of the nanosphere and manpower, the glorious nation of Whirlpool will rise from the ashes like the mighty phoenix. It will be amazing. So this is the Hidden Eddy village? This is the place where you want to build our village. Well, rebuild anyway. Sasuke stated in the form of a statement and not a question. This place, this whole island was perfect for their joint effort to renew the world of Gaia. Naruto did indeed have a brilliant location for them, but lacked the shinobi needed to run it smoothly. While he could just go around and gather missing ninja from various nations, and add the people he found in Konoha whom wanted to leave it, it wasn't enough. Luckily, Sasuke had the opposite problem. He had a large number of shinobi he could use, as he gathered many ninja and allies in Sound and a few other places, but no land to call home. The Land of Whirlpools was perfect for them. Indeed it is, Sasuke. This is where the new empire will rise. Today the sun rises on the awakening of a new world. Marionette commented as she looked around the ruins of the once great, technologically advanced nation. Konoha was jealous of the powers and technology of the Uzumaki clan, nothing more. The will of fire existed, but in the eyes of the strongest animatronic, it was used to bully and destroy others. It wasn't a flame of peace, but a flame of tyranny. That was something Sasuke and Team Taka had to get used to, the talking robots with the souls of Naruto's dead friends in them. To think Hiruzen would kill innocent children to get what he wants, such scum wasn't needed in this world. It was a shame that the old fart had died years ago, otherwise Naruto would have tortured him for years until the old man finally died. Upon learning that Naruto's dead friends now controlled the androids was something interesting, and Kakashi had asked if anyone else could perform this deed of cheating death. According to Marion, only people with the life eyes can do that with their own souls, and that to bring someone back to life you would need another jutsu. Much like the one Nagato used to bring everyone he killed back to life during the invasion of Konoha. Marion was only able to find the lost souls of the people killed by the agents of the Third, simply because they lingered for some time after their physical body died, and placed them in the shells of the animatronics, although she needed to create pseudo-animatronic bodies for two of them. The group stopped walking after an hour and arrived at the village square, which was just as ruined as the rest of the village. Around it were smaller buildings, the nerve center of the former community, because the larger building just ahead was the Cage Tower, which was a 4-story, circular-based building made from brickwork more stubborn and long-lasting than those used elsewhere in the world. Some of the windows were still unscratched by nature and the attacks it must have gotten during the downfall. Two other buildings existed, one opposite sides of the nature-filled square. One seemed to look like a traditional courthouse, and the other looked like a restaurant, namely FFD. The center square held a secret, which was in the monument in the middle of the square, which seemed to look like a rocket blasting off into the heavens, with the smoke trail attaching it to the base of the statue. That secret was a circular indentation in the base, the standard shape of the most advanced object the Uzumaki clan made, the basis of the majority of their technology. The nanosphere. Before Naruto could even get the object to place inside the statue, footsteps that didn't belong to any of the teams reached their ears. The person in question walked up to them from the path that led down to the village, and the person's identity made the eyes of Team Taka, Naruto, and Kakashi widen in surprise. The person in question wore an orange mask with a spiral pattern focused around his right eye, and has short, spiky, black hair. He wears a black long-sleeved top that covers his neck and chin, a pair of black gloves, a pair of dark-colored pants, a long green scarf and standard sandals and white stirrups. On his waist, he wears a thick black belt with armor-like metal plates attached to it, and similar plates on his upper arms. He also had blue nail polish on his fingers and toes, and also wears a purple ring, which bears the kanji for sphere, on his left thumb. His visible eye, the right eye, is identical to the Mangekyo Sharingan that Kakashi wields in his left eye. This man goes by the aliases of Tobi or Madara, but in truth his name is Obito Uchiha. Madara, Naruto says as he looks sharply into the lone eye of the self-proclaimed Madara before the group. The air was still, a potent yet deafening silence echoed through the area between the two factions. Tobi was dealing with Naruto now. The two stared deeply into each other's eyes, their wills silently battling each other through eye contact alone.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.